At the end of the Ice Age, I accumulated tens of billions of supplies. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 451 Outsiders and Natives. 3 major bases, 1 religion, and 1 scattered people. At present, the 5 major forces in Xianhai City have such a pattern. After receiving the email from the investigation team of the Jiangnan region, each family sent people to meet with them. On Zhang Yi's side, he brought the daily combat team, which was still their 4 main forces plus a Huaha. After all, there is no danger around the shelter now. Even if they are in danger, with the defensive capabilities of the shelter, they can fully support them until they come back to rescue them. There is therefore no need to leave combatants on defense. But the other companies couldn't be as chic as Zhang Yi. They always need to beware of the attack of corpses and giant rats, so they have to leave a large number of combat troops behind. And the leaders of various forces rushed to the central building to meet with the investigation team with a part of their combat power. The first to arrive were the people from the Yangsheng base. Zhao Hanglian arrived here with a group of men, a chariot, 4 alien captains, and 10 elite fighters. As for the main camp, Zhuge Qingting led people to stay behind. After coming to the central building, she saw the unusual snowmobile. Is there only 1 car? It seems that there are not many people sent by the district. Zhao Hanglian felt a little heavy. She is very clear about the threat level of the corpse wave. If you don't send a large army to solve it, it will be difficult to clean it up. But how many people can this car bring? Although feeling a little disappointed, Zhao Hanglian still planned to go to the investigation team for a while. She thought in her heart, maybe this is just the vanguard, and a large number of fighters will arrive later. Zhao Hanglian led the people towards the central building, and when she came to the building, she clearly saw the ice and snow passage hundreds of meters long and more than 10 meters deep. Well, it is. Zhao Hanglian squatted down and stretched out his hands to feel the shape of the ice and snow tunnel. The regular curved surface is not made by a machine, but looks like a channel punched out by someone, and it is very smooth and flat. Obviously, this is a foreigner's method. Zhao Hanglian, who is an expert in the doorway and himself a top alien in Xianhai City, naturally understands how powerful this move is. Involuntarily, she put away the contempt in her heart. There are masters among those who come, she whispered. Then Zhao Hanglian led the people towards the central building. Just as they approached the gate, a man in a black uniform came out suddenly, looking at them with a half smile. Which force are you from? Wu Di's feminine face carried a condescending sense of looking down. Such an arrogant face immediately made everyone in the Yangsheng base very dissatisfied, and they really wanted to rush over and beat him up. Zhao Hanglian frowned. We are from Yangsheng base, and I'm Zhao Hanglian, the leader of the base. Wu Di's gaze was always on Zhao Hanglian. Zhao Hanglian, the former head of the criminal police brigade of Xianhai City. Welcome. Zhao Hanglian frowned slightly, and the other party's words had a subtext. I know your information like the back of my hand. She thought to herself, is this considered to be a show of authority? Wu Di turned sideways and said to Zhao Hanglian, please come in. But you can only come in alone, and the others stay outside for the time being. Zhao Hanglian did not refuse. She said to her subordinates behind her, you wait for me outside. A captain-level alien whispered to her, boss, is there any fraud? The corner of Zhao Hanglian's mouth twitched into a sneer. Even if there is fraud, if I want to leave, no one can keep me. The faces of the subordinates showed reverence. That's right, in their eyes, Zhao Hang's strength is unparalleled. So far, I don't know how many people have tried to challenge her status, but no one has survived 30 seconds under Zhao Hanglian's hands. Yes, we are outside, waiting for your order. The soldiers at the Yangsheng base retreated to the side, watching Zhao Hanglian walk into the central building step by step. But they didn't see that when Zhao Hanglian said that sentence, there was a look of contempt on the corner of Wu Di's mouth. Not long after the people from the Yangsheng base arrived, the second batch of people who arrived were from the Chaoyu base. Wei Dinghe was more cautious and even brought his strongest deputy, Chen Jingwen. After all, during this period of time, Wei Dinghe was a little jittery due to the successive defeats and corpse attacks. Wu Di also blocked the door, only allowing Wei Dinghe to go in alone. Chen Jingwen was not happy at that time. What shame do you have? Are you afraid that, if we eat too many people, you won't succeed? Wu Di always had a condescending expression on his face, and no one could feel happy after seeing it. Chen Jingwen can be regarded as the #1 person in Xianhe City, so naturally he doesn't look at his face. Although the opponent is in the name of the Jiangnan region. But this is Xianhe City. When a few people come here, they regard themselves as high-ranking people. Isn't it Kang Lang who wants to overwhelm the snake? After hearing Chen Jingwen's words, Wu Di's face became more mocking. We only chat with the leaders of various forces. Why, is it possible that you are the boss of Chaoyu base? Chen Jingwen's expression suddenly changed. His boss, Wei Dinghe, was right beside him. At this time, Wei Dinghe suddenly laughed and said, haha, let's forget about this trick of sowing discord. His laughter diffuses the tense atmosphere. We came here with sincerity. Since you only want to talk to me, why not let me go alone? In the IC world, Wei Dinghe's I sense no lord ability is very powerful. The offense and defense are integrated, and there are almost no dead ends. So he didn't worry about who would do something against him. What's more, Zhao Han from the Yangsheng base has already passed the training, so he can't show weakness. Wei Dinghe patted Chen Jingwen on the shoulder. Just wait for me outside. He gave Chen Jingwen a warning look. This guy is a master. Don't conflict with him. Chen Jingwen froze, so he nodded. Yes. Wei Dinghe walked into the central building with a calm expression. But in his heart, he was also secretly careful, secretly observing everything around him. At this time, Wu Di sighed a little bored. He stared at the sullen Chen Jingwen and said with a sneer, I wanted to practice with you. Why, now that your boss is gone, do you want to try? Chen Jingwen's expression was a little ugly, but thinking of Wei Dinghe's advice, he didn't dare to make a move, so he could only pretend he didn't hear it and stood aside. This action caused a burst of ridicule from the soldiers at the nearby Yangsheng base. Not long after the people from the two forces arrived, Zhang Yi and the others arrived next. Several people saw the vehicles and soldiers here from a distance, and they knew that the people from Yangsheng base and Chaoyu base had arrived first. It's not that enemies don't get together. I hope these guys can be more peaceful. Zhang Yi opened the insurance of the Golden Sand Eagle while talking. Before the Battle of the Five Armies, Chaoyu base and Yangsheng base suffered heavy losses. I'm afraid that until now, they all hated Zhang Yi very much. In this negotiation, the relationship between the five companies is very delicate, and there may be a fight if there is a disagreement. Zhang Yi was prepared to fight with them. Chapter 450 to the first meeting. Sure enough, when Zhang Yi and the others got out of the car, the atmosphere at the scene suddenly became tense. The soldiers from Chaoyu base and Yangsheng base looked at them, their eyes almost burning, but at the same time they also had deep fear. Because after the Battle of the Five Armies, everyone has reached a consensus that Zhang Yi's team is very powerful, so don't provoke them easily. Zhang Yi put his hand in his pocket, holding the Golden Sand Eagle, and kept vigilant all the time. With his appearance, Wu Di couldn't help but take a second look. He has also heard some rumors about Zhang Yi. Although they only searched for information about Zhang Yi temporarily after they learned that they were coming to Xianhe City. But no matter how you look at it, this person who started as a warehouse manager, fought against several large-scale forces with an elite team, and finally became one of the 5 superpowers in Xianhe City is definitely worthy of attention. Zhang Yi and the others came to the front of the central building, and also saw the passage cleared by Wu Di. Zhang Yi immediately realized that this method was just a warning, to let everyone who came here understand how powerful the special envoy of the Jiangnan region is. Wu Di's voice sounded, you are Zhang Yi, right? Come in by yourself, the others must stay outside. Hearing Wu Di's voice, Zhang Yi had a harmless smile on his face. Okay, as you wish. When Zhang Yi saw the soldiers from the 2 major bases displayed outside, Zhang Yi knew it would be such a result. After all, it is an interview with the leaders of the major forces. It is impossible to make a lot of people run in. Zhang Yi asked Uncle Yu to stay outside and wait for a while. If you feel cold, you can go to the car to stay. He walked into the central building without haste. Woody's gaze was always on him, and he almost never left. Zhang Yi looked a little uncomfortable. After all, no normal male likes to be stared at by men. He even suspected that this Woody was crooked. "Excuse me, is there something on me?" Zhang Yi asked Woody Dao with a smile. Woody crossed his arms and smiled faintly. "I heard you are very strong." Zhang Yi wanted to ask him subconsciously, "What aspect are you referring to?" "If it's between men, I'm sorry, I don't have a hobby of fencing, and I'm not proficient in philosophy." So. Zhang Yi is modest. "If you have time, let's discuss together." Woody was not forgiving. He looked at Zhang Yi with fiery eyes. Zhang Yi shuddered. "Fuck me, this guy doesn't really have a problem with his orientation, does he?" No, I don't have such a hobby. By the way, which room is it in?" Woody's face was full of regret. As a foreigner with the highest strength in the Jiangnan region, it was his first mission to the surrounding cities. So naturally there will be a comparison mentality, wanting to compete with the local top aliens. On the left hand side of the 5th floor, the 3rd conference room. "Oh, thanks." Zhang Yi smiled and left. He didn't look imposing, like a harmless young man next door. Zhang Yi walked upstairs following the path guided by Woody. On the way, he saw several other members of the investigation team. Everyone stands in the open area of the building, which is convenient for observing the surrounding movements, and can provide timely support in case of conflicts. From them, Zhang Yi could feel an elite atmosphere. A look, a simple movement, are very different from ordinary people. If it weren't for years of professional training, he couldn't have this kind of momentum. Zhang Yi said in his heart, "Sure enough, all the people sent from the Jiangnan region are elites." However, Zhang Yi didn't know how much help such a small team could bring them. Thinking this way in his heart, he has already arrived at the meeting room guided by Woody. The door was open, and he walked right in. The conference room is spacious, with a huge red table in the middle. When Zhang Yi walked in, everyone also looked over. 2 old acquaintances, Zhao Hanglian and Wei Dinghe were there. When they saw Zhang Yi, they subconsciously frowned, with fear and annoyance in their eyes. But what Zhang Yi cared most about was sitting at the top, the middle-aged man wrapped in a black coat, and wearing big-toed mirrors. Isn't he a blind man? Zhang Yi thought funny in his heart. Wearing sunglasses at this time is a bit of a fork feeling, but it cannot be ruled out that people have some special preferences. Zhang Yi smiled and introduced himself. "My name's Zhang Yi. Haven't you asked your excellency yet?" As the saying goes, reach out and don't hit the smiling person. Zhang Yi was so polite, as soon as he came up, without any airs, and Bayan Junwu was embarrassed to hold it. He lowered his arms, and said in a cold tone, "My name is Bayan Junwu, and I'm the person in charge, sent by the Jiangnan region, to investigate the situation of the zombies." It turned out to be Mr. Bayan. I have admired him for a long time. After Zhang Yi finished being polite, he found a seat and sat down, and then said nothing more. When meeting for the first time, politeness is also to the point. Before knowing what the other party's intentions are, you still need to be cautious. Zhang Yi didn't even shake hands with him in the past. In the huge conference room, the distance between the 4 people is very far. Obviously, Zhang Yi, Zhao Hanglian and Wei Dinghe are all wary of other people. Only Bayan Junwu looked calm, and even while waiting for the others to come over, he leisurely took out a pack of Helic One from his pocket, and smoked it on his own. None of the few people spoke again. They didn't come here to chat, they all had a purpose. But we need to wait until people from the other 2 families arrive one after another, before we can start talking. I don't know how long it took. Crossing Shine from Kingpu Base also arrived in the conference room. He smiled, greeted Bayan Junwu first, and then sat down not far from Zhang Yi. Zhang Yi noticed that Zhao Hanglian and Wei Dinghe looked at Crossing Shine, as if they wanted to eat people. In the last battle of the 5 armies, they might not have lost if it hadn't been for the Kingpu Base's rebellion. The most hateful thing is that after the battle, Crossing Shine went to rob them of a large amount of supplies. The 2 hated Crossing Shine to the core. But Crossing Shine didn't care about their gazes, and chatted with Zhang Yi as soon as he came up. "Old Zhang, how are you doing there recently? Those zombies and rats that can't be killed, have made us suffer a lot. Zhang Yi frowned, and his voice became low. Don't mention it. I have to clean up those things every day. It's going to annoy me to death. With that said, he leaned on the sofa seat and let out a long sigh. If this goes on, I'm afraid my shelter won't last too long. Hearing that Zhang Yi had a miserable life, the leaders of the 3 bases flashed joy in their eyes. Although they are also miserable, as long as everyone is the same, then they will be balanced. I don't know if it's an illusion, but Zhang Yi felt that after he finished saying this, Bayan Junwu's eyes glanced this way. However, Bayan Junwu wore sunglasses, so that no one could see his eyes. This may just be an illusion. Chapter 453 Take away command authority. Among the 5 major forces, those who worshipped the snow sect were the last to arrive. It's just that the person who came was not the leader Yuan Khan guy, but the high priest Zhang Yi. At this point, everyone did not feel any strangeness. After all, Yuan Khan guy is in the snow worship cult, and usually does not manage any affairs. This 20-year-old girl's management ability is not as good as the experienced Zhang Yi. Therefore, Zhang Yi was naturally the representative of snow worship cult to attend the conference this time. Zhang Yi greeted Bayan Junwu politely and found a seat to sit down. Bayan Junwu saw that all the people from the 5 parties had arrived, so he silently rolled up his sleeves and glanced at his watch. Very well, no one is late. His voice was very cold, as if it came from an ice hole, and it made people feel a little tingling in their hearts when they heard it. Afterwards, Bayan Junwu put his arms heavily on the table. His eyes scanned the crowd present. The zombie crisis broke out in Xianhe City. As the biggest force in Xianhe City, you guys have an inescapable responsibility. One sentence made the expressions on everyone's faces serious. Zhang Yi frowned, with a hint of amusement in the corner of his mouth. Zhao Hanglian folded his arms, looked at Bayan Junwu and said, "What, the envoy from the Jiangnan region? Did he shirk responsibility on us as soon as he came up?" Bayan Junwu sneered. "Shirk responsibility? Do you know what the significance of the establishment of the shelter is? Let's not mention Begsu's teaching. They belong to non-governmental organizations. But the 4 of you either directly occupied the official refuge or inherited most of the resources of the refuge. And in each city, the meaning of the shelter is to maintain the stability of the place when there is a crisis in the city." The sarcasm at the corner of Bayan Junwu's mouth was even stronger. You have occupied the most favorable resources, but you are unwilling to shoulder the responsibility of protecting the stability of one side. What is this but incompetence? Zhao Hanglian's face turned blue and red, and he couldn't refute Bayan Junwu's words. She naturally also understands the meaning of the refuge, which is to allow more people to survive. But as time goes on, they have long forgotten the original intention of establishing the refuge, and only think about seeking more benefits for themselves. But the veteran Wei Dinghe said, "Mr. Bayan, these words are light. Why don't we want to maintain the stability of Xianhe City? But the scale of this wave of corpses is too large. It suddenly appeared, and countless zombies are already making trouble everywhere. There is simply no way to solve this crisis with these forces in our hands alone. After all, we don't have a lot of powerful weapons like the Jiangnan region, and the most elite army in Huaguo." Who knew that? After he finished speaking, the smile on Bayan Junwu's mouth grew stronger. He even crossed his arms and laughed unscrupulously. Ha 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 ha. Then, he withdrew his smile, and his tone became more and more cold. "Since you don't have the ability to deal with this crisis, from now on, obey my orders obediently. I will assume the command task of this zombie crisis. And all your forces must obey my orders unconditionally." Everyone's faces changed again and again, and a sharp light flashed in Zhang Yi's eyes. Let him obey others' orders unconditionally. Impossible. Even if the opponent is from the Jiangnan region, he can't accept it. Because of being mobilized by others, there is the possibility of being sacrificed. This, we may not be able to accept it. Even if the Jiangnan district is a superior, but a few of you just want to command all of us, you are underestimating us. Unless you send a large force, it's possible. The leaders of several forces spoke out one after another that they could not accept that their power was taken away by others. What's more, it's just a small team that doesn't know the depth. If a large army comes, they will bear it. Bayan Junwu sneered and said, "Oh, You mean that I don't have the qualifications, right? Zhao Hanglian snorted coldly. Although the others didn't speak, the meaning in their eyes was obvious. Even though your team is strong, you are still not qualified to be the commander-in-chief of our 5 factions. Bian Junwu said, so, relying on your own strength, can you solve this crisis? The crowd fell silent for a while. The outbreak of corpses and the attacks of rats over the past few days have left them devastated, and no one dares to guarantee it. After all, no one knows how large the corpse-tide and rat swarm are. Bian Junwu mocked, I'm not capable of protecting Xianhe City, and it also caused the zombies to spread towards the surrounding cities, affecting the residents of other cities. I'm greedy for the insignificant power in my hands, and I'm reluctant to let it go. But, don't forget me. Bian Junwu slammed the table hard, startling everyone. Xianhe City is not your property. The Hua Kingdom is still there, and the Jiangnan region is the highest power command center in the Jiangnan region. Bian Junwu said, and stood up from his chair. Although he was thin, he was unusually tall and mighty. There was a ferocious aura of the military on his body. Zhang Yi had only felt this feeling from Ling Feng in the past. Bian Junwu said condescendingly to everyone, I'm here on behalf of the Jiangnan region, and what I say is the will of the Jiangnan region. If you are unwilling to obey my order, then the consequences are not something you can bear. Zhang Yi frowned and remained silent. There are only a few people in his power, so even if the so-called command power is handed over, the loss will be minimal. Unlike the other major forces, they all have large populations or resources. But even so, he is unwilling to lose all initiative. That would put him, and those around him at risk. Zhao Hanglian sneered. If we don't obey, are you going to send troops to destroy us? She was also afraid in her heart, but now everyone is negotiating, so she has to be brave enough to fight for her own interests. After all, once power is released, it is very difficult to get it back. Several people in Zhao Hanglian were worried that, if power was delegated, they would become vassals of the Jiangnan region in the future, and lose their independent power. Bian Junwu's sunglasses were facing Zhao Hanglian's direction, and he stared at her quietly for more than 10 seconds. Zhao Hanglian said coldly, are you scaring me? Bian Junwu opened his lips and said slowly, do you think that the current situation is not serious enough? Do you think this incident is only related to your Xianhe City? Let me tell you the truth. This time when we came to investigate, the top management gave us 2 orders. First, work with local forces to resolve the zombie crisis as much as possible, and not allow the situation to deteriorate and spread to other cities. Second, once it is found that things are out of control, and there is no way to solve the problem of zombies through manpower, then. Bian Junwu stopped abruptly at this point, and then slowly sat back on the chair. The entire Xianhe City can be given up. Chapter 454 Xianhe City is full of trash, except me. Bian Junwu's voice was calm and cold, but not as cold as the leaders of the 5 factions at this time. Is that so? Zhang Yi couldn't help swallowing his saliva. His eyes were extremely serious. It's not that he hasn't considered such a situation. Once the zombie crisis in Xianhe City is too serious, it tends to spread to the surrounding cities. So for the Jiangnan region, timely stop loss is undoubtedly the best choice. It's like an abscess in the human body. If there is no way to cure it with medicine, it can only be removed by surgery. In this way, Bian Junwu's investigation team is actually equivalent to drugs. But once the drug fails, the next surgical operation is. Zhang Yi's heart trembled violently. In that case, the entire Xianhe City will cease to exist. He absolutely does not want to face such consequences. Zhang Yi thought clearly, and the others also understood what Bian Junwu meant. For a moment, everyone fell into silence. Even the hot-tempered Zhao Hanglian couldn't refute it. Destroying them in the Jiangnan region can be done with just a move of a little finger and a push of a button. Bian Junwu was very satisfied with everyone's reaction. He said coldly, then, the armed forces of all local forces in the entire Xianhe City must obey our command unconditionally. Zhao Hanglian, Wei Dinghe, and Crossing Shan had complicated eyes, but right now they really didn't have the qualifications to challenge the Jiangnan region. But at this moment, Zhang Yi spoke slowly. I would like to support your actions, But as you said, the reason why the investigation team came is because the local forces have no way to solve the crisis of zombies and rats. So you have to intervene and command them. But what if we could solve the problems in our sphere of influence ourselves? Zhang Yi had a playful smile on his face. As soon as these words came out, everyone's eyes in the conference room fell on him. Zhang Yi, what do you mean by these words? Don't tell me that just a few people in your shelter can solve such a large number of zombies and rats. Zhao Hanglian asked with a sneer, without a trace of belief on his face. Wei Dinghe also leaned on the chair, mocking leisurely. Sure enough, a hero is born as a boy. Zhang Yi, you are very capable, but this matter is of great importance. Don't cause everyone to follow you to suffer because of your own selfish desires. Even Crossing Shan said to Zhang Yi, didn't you say that your life is miserable now? Don't hold on, just listen to them. The smile on the corner of Zhang Yi's mouth grew stronger. He said lazily, do you think I'm joking with you? No, I'm really sorry. In fact, in the area around our shelter, the problem of zombies and the problem of mutant giant rats have been solved. Everyone's faces were filled with astonishment. This is not a child's play. Zhang Yi said it swearingly. It doesn't look like a joke. But if what Zhang Yi said is true, doesn't it mean that Zhang Yi has been watching the show leisurely when they are all fighting with the corpses and rats with all their might? The expressions on the faces of the leaders of several major forces were uglier than eating shit. I don't believe it. How did you guys do it? Zhao Han smashed the table vigorously and stared at Zhang Yi through gritted teeth. How she wished to hear from Zhang Yi. I was joking, but in fact I have suffered a lot. After all, her base really suffered heavy losses. Why can you live a chic life? Bian Junwu also looked at Zhang Yi curiously. With a calm smile on Zhang Yi's face, he said lightly, what I said is true. If you don't believe it, you can go and investigate yourself. Bian Junwu asked, how did you do it? I'm very curious about this. Everyone stared at Zhang Yi. Although they were resentful, they urgently needed a solution to the problem of corpses and rats. It would be great if we could learn from Zhang Yi. Zhang Yi suppressed the smile on his face, crossed his hands, and put them on the table. He said seriously in a deep voice, actually, that's the case. Corpse swarms feed on humans, so they tend to congregate towards crowded places. As for Xianhe City, where is the most populated place? It is undoubtedly the place where your family gathers. My place has the least number of people, less than 10 people in total. In addition, the place is relatively remote and located in the outskirts, so it doesn't attract many zombies. Zhang Yi frowned. But even so, the battle with them was extremely fierce. After a long period of contact, I found that among them, the Corpse King is in command. The Corpse King has wisdom and can create new zombies. Therefore, only by killing it can a zombie lair be completely destroyed. The giant rat and the zombies have a symbiotic relationship. Once the corpse group is destroyed, the giant rat will lose its target and will not actively attack humans. So, we ventured into the underground tunnel. We used all the weapons we got from the Zishan base. It took many days of hard work to kill the Corpse King and finally put down the zombie crisis in that area. What Zhang Yi said was true and false. Most of it is true, but it hides his real means of dealing with the corpses. After all, in the entire Xianhe City, only he has a huge alien space, which can attract a large amount of seawater from the East China Sea to freeze the subway tunnels. Once he speaks out the means, I'm afraid that several other companies, including Bian Junwu, the emissary of the Jiangnan region, will put pressure on him and ask him to help the other companies solve the zombie problem. Leaving aside whether this will work or not, at least now, Zhang Yi does not intend to do so. He didn't think that flooding the subway with seawater could completely solve the problem of zombies. At least those powerful bronze-armored corpses might not be drowned by water. Not to mention that there is a more mysterious and terrifying Corpse King in the dark. Zhang Yi used means to force them away. Maybe they ran to other spheres of influence. If the subway line is irrigated on a large scale, let's not talk about how huge the subway line in Xianhe City is. Even if Zhang Yi is busy day and night, filling up the underground tunnel, if all the zombies hiding in the ground come out, will they be able to solve it? It's better for Zhang Yi's family to be at ease and let the other families fight the zombies for a while. After listening to Zhang Yi's explanation, everyone felt envious and jealous in their hearts. Indeed, Zishan district and Lujiang district are relatively remote. Especially the shelter where Zhang Yi lives is close to the countryside. That kind of place is difficult to attract a large number of zombies, and there are few railway lines passing by. However, they cannot learn this innate advantage. Bian Junwu looked at Zhang Yi with strange eyes. He thought to himself, I didn't expect that Zhang Yi seemed to have the smallest force, but he was the first to solve the zombie problem. It's really hidden. Chapter 455 Test the Strength. Zhang Yi smiled and said to Bian Junwu, currently, I'm maintaining the status quo in Zishan district and Lujiang district. According to what your excellency said, if our local forces can maintain the stability of the mainland, can we give a certain degree of freedom? Speaking of this, Zhang Yi is also very good at being a man and said, of course, we are very happy to cooperate with the investigation team. If you need our help, just ask. As long as we can do something, we will definitely not hide our secrets. However, at this stage, we still hope to put more energy within our sphere of influence. After all, everyone knows that our family has the smallest number of people, and it is really difficult to allocate troops to act elsewhere. What Zhang Yi said was neither humble nor overbearing. He saved face for Bian Junwu. If your investigation team in Jiangnan region needs it, we can help. Remember, I'm not begging you, but you are coming to me for help. The reason for doing this is to give face to the Jiangnan region behind you. It's not about our own injustice. Bian Junwu stared at Zhang Yi for a long time, before saying in a deep voice, you have done a good job, which also shows that your team has extraordinary wisdom and strength. We need to use your power in the next action. With a smile on the corner of Zhang Yi's mouth, after thinking for 2 seconds, he smiled and said to Bian Junwu, if you need it, please just order it. He still wants to give the face of Jiangnan region. Moreover, Zhang Yi didn't want Xianhe City to be razed to the ground. On the premise of not losing his own interests, he can help Bian Junwu deal with the tide of corpses and rats. Bian Junwu nodded. Then I thank you in advance. From this moment on, everyone understood that Zhang Yi had become a special existence in Xianhe City. The other forces are unable to solve the trouble themselves, so they have to ask Bian Junwu and the Jiangnan region behind him for assistance. Only Zhang Yi, as a facilitator, came to help the frontier army take action. The status gap between the two is huge. Then, Bian Junwu pressed his hands on the table. Everyone, from now on, I need your unconditional cooperation with our actions. Just share all the information you have in your hands first. Also, at this time, no matter what kind of grievances you have had before, you must let me go first. Even if you want to fight, you have to wait until the immediate problem is solved. Zhang Yi had a relaxed smile on his face. Now he is the most leisurely one. His own strength has not suffered any loss, and he has solved the problem of zombies in his sphere of influence. Even if he wants to fight, he is not afraid of anyone. But the others are not so leisurely. They are so busy with their own problems. How can they have time to deal with others? So everyone acquiesced in this matter. They will work together temporarily until the zombie problem is solved. Next, let's talk about how to solve the crisis of zombies and giant mutant rats. Zhang Yixin frowned and said, in this crisis, their worship of the snow cult is undoubtedly the most serious loss. As of today, at least 4,000 or 5,000 of their followers have died. Either they are eaten or infected, and they can only be sent back to the kingdom of God. If the fight continues like this, their foundation of worshipping the snow sect will be beaten back to its original shape. At this moment, there was a sudden commotion outside. Everyone subconsciously looked over. Wei Dinghe frowned deeply because he heard Chen Jingwen's voice. He walked to the window, flicked his fingers, and the ice on the entire glass dissipated instantly. Then he saw clearly the situation outside. For some reason, Chen Jingwen and the investigation team confronted each other, and the atmosphere seemed a little stiff. This kid, what's going on? Wei Dinghe's face changed, and he subconsciously looked at Bian Junwu who was sitting not far away. Sensing Wei Dinghe's gaze, Bian Junwu turned his head and asked, what's wrong? It's nothing, it's just that there was a little conflict among the people under him. Crossing Shan suddenly smiled and said, anyway, he just watched the fun, and didn't think it was a big deal. Oh, a little conflict? Bai and Junwoo looked indifferent. Let them make trouble about their subordinates. We still have very important things to discuss. Bai and Junwoo had no intention of getting up at all. Zhang Yi thought to himself, it seems that he is very confident in the strength of his subordinates. Everyone had no choice but to go back to the table and continue talking. At this time, just outside the central building, Chen Jingwen said to Wu Di and Kang Sheng with a gloomy expression, what about the people from the Jiangnan region? What's so great about it? Back then, I also stayed in the Navy. If you have the ability, come and fight with me. If anyone loses, don't cry and complain. Chen Jingwen had been holding back his anger for a long time. He has a prominent net worth, and before the end of the world, he was the son of everyone in the upper class of Xianhai City. After joining the army, the speed of promotion is also very fast. When the end of the world came, he awakened his abilities and became the number 2 person in Zhao base. But these investigation teams from the Jiangnan region all looked at him as if they were looking at nobody. Chen Jingwen couldn't bear others' contempt for him. Wu Di and Kang Sheng stood on the steps at the door, condescendingly looking down at the angry Chen Jingwen. The smiles on the faces of the two people were even stronger, and they didn't take him seriously at all. Wu Di put his hands in his pockets, smiled and said to Kang Sheng, look, he's losing his temper. Kang Sheng sneered disdainfully, what else can a useless person do except be incompetent and furious? Wu Di said, but everyone has made an appointment to fight. If we refuse to fight, wouldn't it appear that we are afraid of him? Kang Sheng nodded, I don't like to be underestimated either. I'm fine with myself, but I can't let people in these small places really think that the Jiangnan region is like them, with no background. The two sang together, talking and laughing, belittling all the forces in Xianhai City to nothing. Not to mention Chen Jingwen, the second in command of Chaoyu base, was not taken seriously by them. You guys are too arrogant. Everyone is different, so it doesn't mean you can be so strong. Chen Jingwen pointed at the two of them with his right hand and scolded. Kang Sheng narrowed his eyes and walked down the steps slowly. Okay then, I'll let you see what strength the aliens in the Jiangnan region are. And what strength are the aliens in a small place like yours. Seeing that the battle was about to start, people from all major forces gathered around stared at the two on the field intently. They all wanted to see how powerful these people who came down from the Jiangnan region were. Chen Jing saw Kang Sheng walking towards him and laughed secretly in his heart. The reason why he chose to provoke Kang Sheng was because he had judged through Kang Sheng's actions that he was an ability user of the strengthening department. The reinforcement system is the most common and the simplest of the 6 abilities. All enhanced aliens are mutations based on physical abilities, so they are extremely powerful in close combat. And Chen Jingwen's ability is the trade type, rubber, unless it is an attack that exceeds his defense threshold. All physical attacks will be ineffective against him, and the intensity of this threshold may only be achieved by direct artillery fire. Chapter 456 One Move Battle. The battle between Kang Sheng and Chen Jingwen was inevitable. After all, both parties intend to give each other a blow, and the other people around have no idea of stopping it at all. Although Kang Sheng's tone was full of contempt, his eyes were extremely serious, and he didn't mean to underestimate the enemy at all. This battle is related to the face of the people who came down from the Jiangnan region, and they must win. But both Kang Sheng and Chen Jingwen knew it in their hearts. This battle cannot hurt the opponent's life. Otherwise, the relationship between the two forces will be tense, which will not be conducive to the cooperation between the two parties. Kang Sheng raised his hands and assumed a free fighting posture. At the same time, his body suddenly glowed with a layer of silver gray light. The skin around him seemed to have turned into steel. Kang Sheng, an ability user of the strengthening department, has the ability, forging steel, which can make his body as strong as steel, and his defense and attack power are extremely strong. When Chen Jing saw that Kang Sheng's ability was as he thought, after the enhancement system, he immediately raised the corners of his mouth. Uncle Yu watched this scene from a distance and couldn't help but say, that kid from the Jiangnan region is going to suffer. The ability surnamed Chen is very strange, and he is very restrained in melee combat. At the beginning, he had suffered in Chen Jingwen's hands. If it wasn't for the helpers nearby, he might have been strangled to death by Chen Jingwen. So he still has lingering fears about Chen Jingwen. Liang Yu took a look at Kang Sheng's gesture and said, but the opponent is also a master. You can tell from his breathing and movements. No one knows what the result will be. There is no absolute strength in the battle between different people, and it depends on the ability to adapt to the enemy on the spot. Chen Jingwen held his breath and waved to Kang Sheng. That means let Kang Sheng go first. Kang Sheng sneered, even though he knew that the person who made the first move would be the easiest to show his flaws, but he was still fearless. The next moment, he rushed towards Chen Jingwen like a whirlwind. Call out. Everyone's eyes blurred. Kang Sheng didn't rush towards Chen Jingwen from the front, but appeared behind Chen Jingwen in a flash. Its speed was so fast that many people didn't see how he did it at all. A whip kick slammed towards Chen Jingwen's back. Kang Sheng's speed was too fast. Chen Jingwen couldn't guard against it at all, but Kang Sheng also kept his hand and didn't aim at the back of his head. Otherwise, if this kick is strong, it can directly blow his head. However, when Kang Sheng's whip kicked Chen Jingwen's body, he couldn't feel the firm touch. Chen Jingwen's body sank in, as if there were no bones. Okay. Kang Sheng frowned, and a look of surprise appeared in his eyes. The next moment, Chen Jingwen's body twisted and directly wrapped around his right leg. Without giving Kang Sheng a chance to get away, Chen Jingwen entangled directly along his thigh like a tarsal maggot. After a while, Chen Jingwen tied up Kang Sheng firmly. He looked like a huge human snake, and his twisted body wrapped 5 or 6 times around Kang Sheng's body. It was impossible to imagine that it was a human body. Seeing this, Kang Sheng immediately tried to break free from Chen Jingwen's shackles. But no matter how hard he tried, it was quickly dispelled on Chen Jingwen's body. And every time he struggled, Chen Jingwen shrank tighter. Crack, creak. The man of steel was tightly restrained and crushed, making a toothache sound. Stop struggling. If you continue like this, I'm afraid I'll accidentally crush your bones. Chen Jingwen turned his head around Kang Sheng and said with a smile, no matter how strong you are, as long as you are entangled by me, it is impossible to escape. You'd better admit defeat obediently. Kang Sheng sneered. His right hands were brought together, turned into an indestructible sword, and cut towards Chen Jingwen's torso. However, even a hand knife comparable to steel would have no effect on the sticky and slippery Chen Jingwen. Apart from cutting his clothes to reveal the slippery body inside, it has no effect. I've said it before. People from the strengthening department can only catch me without a fight. If you are dishonest again, then I will break your bones. Chen Jingwen laughed loudly. What about the aliens from the Jiangnan region? Don't underestimate us. Kang Sheng was bound tightly, unable to move his hands and feet. Facing such a difficult opponent, the onlookers almost all believed that he was powerless to fight back. Uncle Yu couldn't help but swallowed his saliva. He recalled his personal experience, shook his head and said, the winner has been decided. But at this moment, Kang Sheng, who was tightly bound, suddenly turned his head and opened his mouth at Chen Jingwen's head. A sharp dagger spat out from his mouth and accurately shot Chen Jingwen's left eye. Puff. Blood splattered. What? Chen Jingwen howled in pain. Due to the severe pain, his restraint on Kang Sheng could not be maintained. Kang Sheng suddenly increased his strength and sent Chen Jingwen flying. Chen Jingwen endured the severe pain and stood firm on the ground and looked at Kang Sheng with the other eye full of resentment. Kang Sheng laughed loudly. I thought your eyeballs could also turn into rubber. He licked his lips as he spoke, only to see a smear of blood on the tip of his tongue. But Kang Sheng didn't spit it out, but swallowed it. It turned out that the dagger that just spat out from his mouth was his tongue. Uncle Yu couldn't help being surprised and said, he can even strengthen his own tongue, turning into a dagger and piercing Chen Jingwen's eyeball. The change in the situation on the battlefield surprised everyone. Originally they thought that Chen Jingwen would win, but no one expected such a reversal. Chen Jingwen covered his injured right eye, gritted his teeth unwillingly and asked, how do you know where my weakness is? Kang Sheng laughed and said, your body can become rubber, but if your eyes also change accordingly, wouldn't you be blind? The reason why the eyes can see things is because they can receive the light source and transmit it to the retinal nerve. But once Chen Jingwen's eyes are also deformed, the light will be distorted, and he will naturally become no different from a blind person. Therefore, Kang Sheng judged that Chen Jingwen's weakness was his eyes. This time, let him get right. Go and heal your wounds. If you are later, your life will be gone. Kang Sheng laughed and said to Chen Jingwen, in such a severe cold environment, injury is not a trivial matter. Although Chen Jingwen was a little unwilling to lose, he felt that he should be more careful next time, not to expose his weakness to Kang Sheng. He must be the one who wins. But right now, if you lose, you lose. It can even be said that, if Kang Sheng was not merciful, he could be easily killed at this time. With a gloomy face, Chen Jingwen hurried back to the car, used medicine to stop the bleeding and bandaged himself. This battle ended very quickly, and the investigation team won cleanly and beautifully, without being muddled at all. Chapter 457. Kang Sheng killed Chen Jingwen in less than a minute. This kind of strength made everyone present look dignified. Chen Jingwen is the deputy of Zhao base, and his combat ability is well known in many people's hearts. Especially Uncle Yu, a stranger in the reinforcement system, asked themselves, if they met Chen Jingwen, would they win? Uncle Yu didn't have much confidence in his heart. Liang Yu felt that he had a chance to win, but it was not that easy. This is not a gap in personal force, but a gap in mind. The combat teams dispatched from the Jiangnan region all climbed out of the dead, and their fighting qualities were extremely high. After Kang Sheng defeated Chen Jingwen, he still had something to say to the crowd watching. If anyone thinks they are capable, they can come and play a game with me now. Everyone understood that Kang Sheng and the others were trying to establish their prestige. It's just that seeing Chen Jingwen being easily killed instantly, other people are of course unwilling to be this early bird. A person who accidentally throws his own tricks here is in danger of life. Seeing that there was no one to fight, Kang Sheng shrugged boredly, then turned around lazily and walked back. In the meeting room on the second floor, Wei Dinghe heard Chen Jingwen's screams from outside, and his expression turned ugly. But right now, it's not easy for him to go over to check the situation, because Bian Junwu and the leaders of several major forces are discussing the next battle plan. Each family explained their own understanding of the corpses and rats. In this way, the information of each family has been replaced. Except for Zhang Yi's concealment of his method of eliminating corpses and rats, everyone has almost no reservations about other information. After all, on the issue of eliminating zombies, everyone's interests are the same. Only by eradicating the swarm of rats can Xianhe City be saved. Otherwise, with the slight push of a button in Jinling, the death of love will completely wipe out Xianhe City from the map. No one can afford this price. After exchanging information, Bian Junwu put his hands on the table and began to issue combat instructions. Very well, I have listened to the information provided by each of you. Combined with the information we have obtained, I already know in my heart what to do next. Everyone's eyes flickered, and they were quite looking forward to it. The intelligence system possessed by the Jiangnan region must be far beyond their comparability. It's just that they are very curious about how much information the regional headquarters in Jinling has on Xianhe City. Bian Junwu glanced at the crowd through the big-toed mirror and said straightly, according to our investigation, zombies like to attack crowded places. The more people there are, the more zombies will attract them. The swarm of rats and the swarm of corpses are in a companion relationship, and they have been following the swarm of corpses. So as long as the swarm of corpses can be solved, the problem of the swarm of rats will not be difficult to solve. According to the intelligence, the group of corpses shows a certain degree of regularity in their actions, and it can almost be concluded that there is a corpse king commanding behind them. Of course, corpse king is just a code name. It may be a powerful zombie, or it may be a stranger. Moreover, the number of corpses is extremely terrifying, and it can be maintained to fight in many places in Xianhe City. Bian Junwu's voice raised several decibels. Then, based on this information, we can basically conclude that just eliminating the corpses on the surface is useless. Only by destroying that thing called the King of Corpse can the turmoil of corpse tide in Xianhe City be eradicated from the root. So from now on, I ask all your major forces to move most of the population underground. Avoid being passively beaten all the time. Then concentrate the elite troops in your hands and focus on destroying the Corpse King. What Bian Junwu means is that the major bases should not be greedy for their own 1/3 of an acre of land. It is necessary to abandon the steel-making plant at the Qingpu base, the oil refinery at the Yangsheng base, and the port at the Chaoyu base. The leaders of the three forces looked at each other. Although there was some hesitation in their eyes, they finally thought about it and nodded in agreement. In the past, they refused to give up the resources on the surface because they were worried that their living space would be affected in the future. And even if they gave up the surface resources, they still couldn't solve the corpse tide. But now that there are people from the Jiangnan region to endorse and give them a unified command, they will have confidence in their hearts. Anyway, each family is too busy to take care of themselves, and it is impossible to take the opportunity to attack other forces. And as long as the corpse tide can be eliminated, those sites and resources will still be theirs in the future. It's impossible for those zombies to be interested in resources. They are only interested in human flesh. When the major forces sit together and unite the front, many problems can be easily solved. At this time, the high priest of the snow worship cult who was sitting in a corner spoke. Then what do we do? Zhang Yi frowned, obviously unhappy. They all have their own underground shelters and high-level shelters. But our snow worship cult has nothing. Mr. Bayan, you can't favor one over another in this matter. Hearing this, Bayan Junwu turned his head to look at Zhang Yi. But he just said coldly, your snow worship cult has thousands of congregants. They join your sect. How to protect them is the responsibility of your snow worship cult. Could it be, do you still expect us to help you protect your disciples? Zhang Yi's face turned ugly. Before he could refute, Bayan Junwu said again, we can only formulate tactical plans based on your current conditions. If you don't even have this awareness, you can only be wiped out by the tide of corpses. Bayan Junwu didn't care about anyone's life or death. What he cares about is whether the corpse wave crisis in Xianhai City can be eliminated so that the zombie virus will not spread to the surroundings. Zhang Yi gritted his teeth and clenched the chair with his right hand. In other words, you want to watch our people die. Besides, if other forces go underground, the snow worship cult will undoubtedly become the biggest target of the corpse group. How will our believers survive then? Zhang Yi raised his eyebrows with a hint of amusement in the corner of his mouth. Zhao Hanglian, Wading He and Crossing Shine all looked disapproving. They really don't care about the life and death of snow worship sect. Zhao Hanglian even sneered and said, you worship so many disciples. Most of them are people without fighting ability. If you don't have that great ability, don't recruit so many disciples. If something goes wrong now, you should take responsibility yourself. She has long been displeased with snow worship cult, so naturally she will not let this opportunity of cynicism pass. Zhang Yi stared at Zhao Hanglian with a deep murderous intent in his eyes. At this moment, Bayan Junwu broke the deadlock. The existence of snow worship cult also has its meaning. If you can't hide it well, then it can play another role. Chapter 458 Go to your home for a sit. Bayan Junwu's words gave Zhang Yi an array of hope. Oh. What are your plans? Bayan Junwu just gave him a cold look. I can't tell you yet, this is confidential. But I will tell you the answer in 3 days at most. Now, you will go back and arrange your own manpower according to my order. I will notify you of any next actions. Bayan Junwu was very mysterious, and when everyone wanted to ask, he just waved his hand and told them to leave. Everyone has no choice. After all, they are special commissioners of the Jiangnan region, and they were afraid of the strength of the Jiangnan region, so they had no choice but to obey orders. A group of people got up and left from the conference room. Zhang Yi put his hands in his pockets, but when he was about to leave, he was stopped by Bayan Junwu. Zhang Yi, wait a minute. Everyone had different expressions on their faces, and they didn't know what Bayan Junwu wanted to talk to Zhang Yi alone. However, considering that Zhang Yi is the only one who has solved the zombie problem in his sphere of influence, everyone understands why Bayan Junwu wanted him. Zhang Yi raised his eyebrows and said with a smile, Mr. Bayan, do you have any advice? Bayan Junwu walked to Zhang Yi's side, and for the first time a smile appeared on his pale and thin face. Can I come and sit with you? Zhang Yi did not expect Bayan Junwu to make such a request. He frowned and subconsciously wanted to refuse. Although he knew that Bayan Junwu was from the Jiangnan region, His constant vigilance made him resist any strangers entering his shelter. Zhang Yi said with a smile, "What's so good about my place? The environment of several major bases is much better than my home, and the conditions there are quite average." Bian Junwu looked at him playfully and said slowly, "Why don't you welcome me?" Zhang Yi quickly raised his hands and said with a smile, "How could it be? That's not true." Bian Junwu said, "You don't need to be too nervous. I have no malice towards you, and there was no grievance between the two of us in the past. Why are you so guarded against me?" Zhang Yi just smiled and didn't speak. Caution is the boat. He has always been unafraid to speculate on people's hearts with the deepest malice. He is wary and skeptical of anyone he doesn't know. Bian Junwu smiled. "I just want to have a good chat with you. The specific process of how you eliminated those corpses." As he spoke, he leaned close to Zhang Yi's ear. "Besides, I also have a lot of information that you don't understand." These words moved Zhang Yi a little. The intelligence held by the Jiangnan region must be countless times more than him. After the end of the world, Zhang Yi realized the importance of intelligence for survival and warfare. Therefore, he is also sparing no effort to collect all kinds of information. He glanced at Bian Junwu, thought for a moment, then nodded with a smile. "Well, since you are so enthusiastic about going to be a guest, I can't refuse people thousands of miles away. After all, he is from the Jiangnan region. If it is not necessary, it is better not to make the relationship too rigid." Bian Junwu went out with Zhang Yi, and the two walked side by side. It can be clearly seen from this that Bian Junwu's attitude towards Zhang Yi is different from others. But Xiao Hong and the others didn't feel unconvinced. They and Zhang Yi are enemies, and it is true that they are hostile to Zhang Yi in their hearts. But in all fairness, they also admire Zhang Yi. Starting from humble beginnings, relying on a shelter and a few teammates, they can occupy a corner of Xianhai City in the last days and become a hero who can stand up to them. This zombie crisis is so difficult. Only Zhang Yi's family is safe and sound. If this is not strength, what is it? A group of people came out, and the atmosphere outside was still tense. Chen Jingwen was blinded in one eye and could only wrap half of his head with a bandage, looking a little funny. After the group came out, they naturally saw this scene. Wei Dinghei's face changed slightly, although he guessed it would be like this, but his deputy was hurt by someone, and he still couldn't help feeling resentful in his heart. "Chen Jingwen, what happened to your eyes?" Wei Dinghei asked in a deep voice. Chen Jingwen looked up at Wu Di and Kang Sheng, who had playful smiles on their faces. Chen Jingwen said in a muffled voice, "Boss, I'm fine. It's just that I just sparred with friends from the investigation team and suffered some skin trauma. It's fine if you lose the fight, but if you sue the boss in front of so many powerful bigwigs, it would be a bit embarrassing." What's more, Chen Jingwen knew in his heart that he couldn't conflict with people from the Jiangnan region at this time. Wei Dinghei glanced at Wu Di and Kang Sheng, but did not speak. He just patted Chen Jingwen on the shoulder, ready to lead him back and make arrangements for the Zhaoyu base. Bian Junwu glanced at Wu Di and Kang Sheng next to him. "Didn't I tell you not to conflict with them?" Although the tone was as cold as ever, there was no anger. Wu Di said with a smile, "These people are not convinced by us in their hearts. We must let them know how powerful we are. In this way, we will not be held back by others in future actions." Bian Junwu pushed his own toad mirror and said lightly, "Don't do this next time." Wu Di and Kang Sheng laughed and said, "Understood." They know their captain. He also just talked about it, but in fact this kind of action of standing up is indispensable. If you have no strength, why should people convince you? Zhang Yi has been silent all the time. Anyway, he was the one who was least affected by this matter from the beginning to the end. Therefore, he does not need to be in a hurry, and there is no need to deliberately prove anything to others. As for Zhao Honglian, Wei Dinghei and Crossing Shan, they naturally had some concerns in their hearts. As Wei Dinghei's deputy, Chen Jingwen's strength should not be underestimated. Even he was easily defeated by members of the investigation team. One can imagine how powerful the investigation team is. In the future, we should be a little more cautious when dealing with them, and not be too reckless. Just when the various factions were about to leave, suddenly, a voice came from the window on the second floor. "There are corpses approaching." Zhang Yi looked up and saw a man in his 30s with a strong and slender figure in a black combat uniform. He was holding a large black sniper rifle in his hand. It was a sniper rifle that Zhang Yi had never seen before. It had a weird shape, but it gave people a feeling that all the light would be absorbed by it. He is the sharpshooter in the investigation team, Qi Guangming. When they heard Qi Guangming's words, everyone also realized that something was wrong around them. From a distance, a large number of zombies emerged one after another. At a glance, there must be at least thousands of them. Crossing Cheyenne said in a deep voice, "So many of us gathered here, such a big commotion really attracted these damn things." The group of corpses crawled over from the ruins. After seeing a large number of living people in front of them, bloodthirsty rays of light burst out from their eyes. Roar. There was a strange roar in their throats, and they suddenly started running from a distance, and the target was everyone in the field. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 459. Seeing the crowd of corpses attacking, although there was a touch of disgust in the eyes of everyone, no one was afraid. Because what is gathered here is the most powerful group of fighters in Cheyenne City. Such a small number of zombies can't pose a threat to them at all. It's just that everyone is busy dealing with the affairs of their respective bases now, and they don't want to waste time here. It's really unlucky. I can see them appearing everywhere. Could it be that Cheyenne City has become a nest of zombies? Zhao Hanglian raised his eyebrows and cursed angrily. Everyone is ready to fight, and plans to spend a certain amount of time to kill all the zombies here. Wei Dinghe did not forget to remind Bian Junwu and others. These zombies must all be killed, otherwise they will return with information about us. Next time they will be even more difficult to deal with. Oh, so that's the case. Bian Junwu said lightly. He suddenly walked down the steps, reaching out to take off his sunglasses as he walked. When he took off his sunglasses, everyone suddenly discovered that his eyes were not normal black, nor were they sky blue like foreigners. It was a strange grayish white, but there was a strange and sickly light in that grayish white. It's not the bleakness of cataracts, but after a glance, people can feel a strong shock in their hearts. Bian Junwu walked to the front of the crowd. Everyone immediately understood that the captain of the investigation team in the Jiangnan region was going to take action himself. Zhang Yi's eyes flickered, and he also wanted to see how strong this captain was. The group of corpses in front of them rushed over roaring, less than 500 meters away from everyone. Everyone could clearly see their blood-red pupils and the frozen rotten flesh on their bodies. Bian Junwu looked ahead and suddenly whispered, "Enemy." The next moment, everyone saw that the space in front of them was enveloped by a blazing white light. The light was so dazzling that all the scenery in the surrounding space disappeared, leaving only the tall and straight figure of Bian Junwu. Zhang Yi couldn't help stretching out his hand to cover the light. He subconsciously looked around. At this time, all I could see were a few people around me, as well as my own shadow. All the surrounding scenes just disappeared, and the tide of thousands of zombies in front of everyone dissipated completely like dust in an instant. After a long time, the light in front of Zhang Yi's eyes slowly dissipated, and he saw the surrounding scene again. Not only him, Zhao Hanglian, Wei Dinghe and others around him also looked blank, looking around in a little helplessness. Just now, everyone was the same, almost deprived of the ability to see things. At this moment, Wei Dinghe suddenly raised his right hand in shock and pointed forward. "You guys, look." Everyone followed his fingers to look, only to see any shadows of corpses in front of him. All that was left was a piece of broken dust, which disappeared when the wind blew it away. Zhang Yi's pupils constricted suddenly, and he couldn't believe what he saw with his eyes. Thousands of zombies just now. Have they all been wiped out? Killing thousands of zombies with just one blow. This kind of strength can be described as unbelievable. Zhang Yi has seen many powerful aliens. For example Ling Feng, such as Zhao Hanglian, Wei Dinghe. Although they are powerful, their abilities are still within the scope of human understanding. But what about Bian Junwu? His ability can no longer be described logically. Just glanced at it, and wiped out thousands of zombies. This What a terrifying ability. Once upon a time, Zhang Yi thought that he had devoured the abilities of many aliens. He dare not say that he was at the top of the alien circle, but at least he was also the top group. But today, Bian Junwoo taught him a good lesson. If he fights Bian Junwoo, can the dimension gate stop this terrifying force? The scene was completely silent, no one spoke, and everyone didn't even dare to breathe too hard. For a long time, everyone couldn't recover from the shock just now. Wu Di said to Kang Sheng, the captain also told us to restrain ourselves, but in the end he made a big mistake himself. Kang Sheng said, maybe the captain thinks what you said is right. Only by showing enough strength can people willingly listen to your command. They were right. If it is said that before, Wei Dinghe, Zhao Hanglian, Crossing Cheyenne and others were willing to listen to Bian Junwoo's command, because they were afraid of the Jiangnan region. So now, after they had seen Bian Junwoo's strength, they no longer dared to have any dissatisfied thoughts in their hearts. Bian Junwoo slowly put on the wide-toed mirror. But not long after, he suddenly covered his mouth and coughed violently. Vice Captain Bailey Chanking came over and said worriedly, Captain, you can just let us deal with these bastards. There is no need to do it yourself. Bian Junwoo stood up straight and said coldly, everyone is very busy. There is no time to waste here. Zhang Yi noticed that he clenched his right fist and stuffed it into the pocket of the black coat. It looks like he's in some condition. Zhang Yi immediately made a judgment. It's just that with the strength of the Jiangnan region, it is impossible to cure ordinary injuries. Therefore, Bian Junwoo's injuries cannot be cured. Is it terminally ill? Or is this injury related to his abilities? Zhang Yi had many guesses in his mind. Bian Junwoo turned his head and said to the astonished crowd, okay, everyone, you can go back. Remember, keep in touch at any time. When I contact you, you must cooperate with our actions as soon as possible. Wei Dinghe and the others hurriedly nodded in agreement. This time everyone's eyes were filled with admiration, and even their speech became much gentler. Everyone bid farewell to Bian Junwoo, and then left the central building. Zhang Yi could feel that everyone still hadn't recovered from Bian Junwoo's shock. His abilities are not at the same level as everyone in Qianhai City. Zhang Yi walked up to Bian Junwoo with a smile and asked with concern, Mr. Bian, is there something wrong with your body? I have a doctor at home who can take a look for you. Bian Junwoo said with a faint smile, it's okay, it's an old problem, just take a rest. Zhang Yi felt a thump in his heart. Don't need to see a doctor? It seems to be similar to what I thought. It should be an incurable disease, or an irreversible dark wound caused by a supernatural power. He did not continue the subject. It's very cold here. Everyone go to my house and sit down. Bian Junwoo smiled and nodded. That's fine. I just happen to have a lot to talk to you about. Only when talking to Zhang Yi, Bian Junwoo had a smile on his face. Fatty Zhu, Liang Yu and Uncle Yu were not the only ones surprised by this scene. Even the rest of the investigation team felt strange. But everyone got into the car. Zhang Yi and the others led the way and drove towards the shelter. In the investigation team's vehicle. After getting into the car, Wu Di couldn't wait to ask the frontier martial arts. Captain, why do you have such a good attitude towards that Zhang Yi? Is he your illegitimate son who has been lost for many years? There was a burst of laughter in the car. The corner of Bian Junwoo's mouth also raised slightly, but it was not easy to detect. He is used to Wu Di's funny way of speaking. So I didn't care too much. He said to Wu Di and others that Zhang Yi is not simple. I can feel that his strength is very strong, and he is not comparable to the leaders of other forces. This may be a good seedling. Chapter 460 Showdown. Hearing that Bian Junwoo made such a high evaluation of Zhang Yi, the rest of the investigation team were also a little surprised. The seedlings mentioned by Bian Junwoo mean the aliens who have the potential to join them. Zhao Hanglian, Wei Dinghe, Crossing Cheyenne, and Zheng Yixin are the objects of observation. However, the recruitment in the Jiangnan region is extremely strict. Whether it is ability, loyalty, or brains are very important. It is not in line with their recruitment criteria to only satisfy the point of being powerful and powerful. Of course, this does not mean that all members of the investigation team are better than Zhao Hanglian and others. It's just that they are members of the Jiangnan region themselves, so they know the basics and the bottom line, and their loyalty is guaranteed. The conditions for recruiting members from the peripheral areas are naturally much stricter. Is he that powerful? But I have never seen him make a move. How do you judge this? Explosive expert Li Jikan curiously moved his head over and asked. First, it's my intuition. Second, it is a judgment made through experience. Although they have a small team, they can become one of the 5 top forces in Shanghai City, which means that they are stronger at the level of aliens. As the boss of the team, Zhang Yi must have the strongest overall strength. Moreover, only they have solved the zombie problem around the base. This is a good judgment condition. Bayan Junwu had a playful smile on his mouth. Discovering Zhang Yi made him feel that the trip was a bit more fun. After all, for an elite like him, the room for improvement after reaching a certain level is relatively limited. Discovering new people has become one of his pleasures. Bailey Changqing laughed loudly and said, so that's how it is. He lowered his head, his sturdy body was like a bear, and his eyes were deep. Captain, you really think long term? The atmosphere in the carriage was suddenly a little silent, and everyone seemed to have thought of something bad. A few seconds later, Wu Di broke the atmosphere with a smile. Interesting and interesting. I want to do 2 tricks with him. Bayan Junwu raised his eyebrows. Wu Di, don't be too careless. As far as I know, his ability can restrain you. Oh. A dissatisfied expression appeared on Wu Di's face. Restrain me? That would be more interesting. Captain, what ability is he? Bayan Junwu said, it's an extremely rare spatial ability even in the trace system. Inside the carriage, there was a burst of exclamation. Space ability. Bailey Changqing's eyes widened, and he murmured, even in the Jiangnan region, there are very few owners of space abilities. This ability has very high strategic value. The space system ability may not be the most powerful, but it must be what every team wants most. Among other things, even if it only has the ability to store items, it can bring great convenience to the team's actions. No wonder Captain you want him to join our team. Bailey Changqing laughed loudly. Bayan Junwu said, I just have this idea, I can try his fineness. And whether he is willing to leave Shanghai City and go to the Jiangnan region depends on his own decision. Finding Zhang Yi was a windfall, but the main purpose of his trip is to solve the zombie crisis. And at this time the car in front. Zhang Yi used automatic driving to drive the car to the shelter. He was also discussing the pros and cons of people from the Jiangnan region with Liang Yu and the others. These people are too powerful, and they are not at the same level as the forces we faced before. Be more careful and polite to them in the future. People in the military region are people in the military region, and you need to maintain a certain degree of awe. Bayan Junwu's move of Nirvana has completely suppressed Zhang Yi. It also made Zhang Yi understand how powerful the Jiangnan region is, the legendary ruler of the Jiangnan region. There is definitely more than one alien of Bayan Junwu's level. Now he doesn't mind currying favor with people from big powers. As a human being, many times you need to learn from your younger brother's spirit and be able to bend and stretch. And Zhang Yi can also feel that Bayan Junwu has such a slight affection for him. Although I don't know where this favor comes from, at least it is good news. A few hours later, Zhang Yi brought Bayan Junwu and others to his shelter. Bayan Junwu and the others couldn't help being moved when they saw the huge luxury villa. I thought his shelter was underground. I didn't expect it to be a big villa. Kang Sheng couldn't help but shook his head and sighed. This is too luxurious. Even in the Jiangnan region, there is no such a luxurious shelter, right? Meng Xiaoyu said to several people, don't forget, this place used to be the residence of the richest man in China. It's not surprising that there will be this level. Several people got out of the car, first looked at the appearance of the shelter curiously, and were amazed by its magnificence. Zhang Yi came over, smiled and invited them to sit inside. Everyone entered the shelter, and Zhao Ke and the others were waiting here to welcome them. They got the news early that guests from the Jiangnan region would come. But out of curiosity, they still took a quick look at the people Zhang Yi brought with them. Zhang Yi, are they the people sent by the Jiangnan region? It feels like a regular army. Zhang Yi would not take people to the shelter easily. Even if these people came from the Jiangnan region, Zhang Yi would not allow them to step into his restricted area if they did not have a certain identity and status. Zhang Yi said, they are all envoys from the Jiangnan region, and they came to help Shanghai City deal with the zombie problem. Go get some food and drink. After finishing speaking, Zhang Yi turned to ask Bayan Junwu and the others. By the way, I don't know what you guys want to drink. The conditions in our house are relatively simple. We only have wine, coffee, and beverages. Please don't dislike them. Hearing Zhang Yi's words, even Bayan Junwu's eyelids twitched. The faces of the others were even more distorted, and they wanted to strangle Zhang Yi, the Versailles, by the neck, and ask him if he had a heart. However, they were all professional army soldiers, and they were not overly surprised by the comfortable environment in the villa. Bayan Junwu said lightly, plain water is fine. Several people sat down on the sofa in the living room. Since they didn't want to behave like bumpkins entering the city, they could only quietly look at everything in the house. Luxurious furniture and a warm and comfortable environment were things they couldn't enjoy in Blizzard City. Zhang Yi and Liang Yu were by the side. Bayan Junwu suddenly said to Zhang Yi, "Can we have a chat alone?" Zhang Yi nodded and said with a smile, "Of course, please follow me here." Zhang Yi naturally tried his best to satisfy the leader's order. So Zhang Yi asked others to treat Wu Di and the others well, while he and Bayan Junwu came to the small reception room next door. This room is located in the southeast corner of the shelter, with a wide view, and the walls are made of thick bulletproof glass. Dialogue here is easy, to make people feel at ease, and it is a very suitable place for drinking tea and chatting with others. Zhang Yi held 2 glasses of boiled water, put one on the opposite side, and one in front of him. Bayan Junwu came to the reception room, looked at the snow scene outside with his hands behind his back, and then sat down on the sofa opposite Zhang Yi. "It's just the two of us now. Let me tell you how you dealt with those zombies." Zhang Yi opened his mouth, planning to add more fuel to what he said before. Bayan Junwu stared at him and said slowly, "The method you said before has some reservations. It's okay to deceive them, so don't play with my mind. In fact, the Jiangnan region has more information than you imagined." Zhang Yi paused and laughed dumbfoundedly. Sure enough, the person from above is not easy to deceive. If he is more vague, he may leave a bad impression on Bayan Junwu. That's not what he wanted. Chapter 461 Power Level. Zhang Yi no longer concealed it, and told Bayan Junwu how he dealt with the corpses. "Actually, the way I deal with those zombies is to flood them. I dare not say that the zombies in the entire Zishan district and Lujiang district have been dealt with. However, within a radius of kilometers, neither zombies nor giant rats took any large-scale actions." After listening to Zhang Yi's explanation, Bayan Junwu took a sip of hot water from the water cup in his hand. "Why didn't you tell the truth just now? Did you want them to kill more people? Because they attacked you together before. Still, you want to become the king of Xianhe City." Facing Bayan Junwu's questioning, Zhang Yi was neither humble nor overbearing. He said slowly, "In the beginning, maybe there was a little bit of revenge on them. After all, you don't need me to tell you that the relationship between our 5 forces is not harmonious. One goes up and down, and if they are weaker, I will be stronger. However, the most important reason is not this. It's that I can't help them much." Zhang Yi put down the teacup in his hand, crossed his hands, and put them on his knees. "You should know how big the subway network in Xianhe City is. I don't have the ability to help all their forces. And I don't think that approach solves the underlying problem either. If you can't eliminate the Corpse King, zombies will keep appearing." Bayan Junwu was non-committal, but asked back, "Then have you seen the Corpse King?" Zhang Yi shook his head. "No. But I believe that the Corpse King must exist. It sounds good. Zombies attack places with a lot of people. However, there are only 9 people in our shelter, and we rarely go out on weekdays. Why do they attract corpses?" A meaningful smile appeared on the corner of Zhang Yi's mouth. He stared at Bayan Junwu and said slowly, "Zombies will choose targets. That is, someone is deliberately targeting our 5 forces." Bayan Junwu looked at Zhang Yi, then smiled and said, "You are really smart." Zhang Yi shook his head. "It's not a great wisdom, it's just a little clever, barely enough to survive in this last days." Bayan Junwu already had some opinions of his own. Although Zhang Yi's method cannot fundamentally solve the problem, it can also maintain stability in some areas. It just needs to be used with restraint. Otherwise, if all the zombies are forced out, the situation in Xianhe City will explode completely. If you are not fully prepared, you will not be able to cope. and they still need to gather more intelligence. Only by knowing what the so-called corpse king is and where it is hiding can the beheading be carried out. You have great potential. I guess you may be an alien at the Delta level. Do you want to consider leaving this small place and go to the Jiangnan region? Bian Junwu threw an olive branch to Zhang Yi. Zhang Yi is very interested in the concept of supernatural power level proposed by Bian Junwu. Wait a minute, what did you just say? Delta? Only then did Bian Junwu realize that Zhang Yi did not understand the professional knowledge about aliens. He laughed dumbly. It's not a secret, I can tell you about it. He asked Zhang Yi, when do you think the aliens began to appear? Zhang Yi replied without hesitation, gamma rays pass by the blue star after the ice age comes. Wrong. Bian Junwu directly vetoed Zhang Yi's words. He said, human mutations have existed since ancient times. From the theory of evolution, it is inevitable that all living things mutate all the time. Good mutations allow organisms to gain stronger survivability and then have a greater chance to mate and then leave offspring to inherit this variation. Just talking about us humans, today's humans and our ancestors millions of years ago are almost two species. During this process, there will always be some individuals with special abilities among the hundreds of millions of people. The mighty general hero, the capable man who swallows clouds and mist, and the deformed monster with 3 heads and 6 arms. They are all aliens. Bian Junwu took a sip of hot water and said to Zhang Yi with a serious expression, inhumans have existed since ancient times. It's just that there has never been such a large-scale mutation as today. Stimulated by external factors, the gene sequence of the entire group has been changed, thus giving birth to countless aliens. However, the research on human body mutations in various countries in the world has been going on for a long time. Therefore, the level and classification of aliens have existed for a long time. Zhang Yi crossed his arms. I know the 6 categories of aliens. But how are the levels of aliens divided? Bian Junwu explained. At present, the whole world has a unified standard for dividing aliens. In the beginning, it was at the alpha level, also called LV1. The mutation ability produced by this level of aliens is not strong, and there is no growth potential. It can only reflect a part of extraordinary power. This kind of aliens are just stronger than ordinary people. Be stronger. Then there is the beta level, LV2. It is stronger than the alpha level. It has the strength of the top elite fighters of mankind, but there is still not much room for growth. Next is the gamma level, LV3. At this level, aliens already have relatively powerful extraordinary power. Either it is a super powerful ability that can resist hundreds of people, or some kind of extremely powerful auxiliary ability. When talking about this, Zhang Yi thought of the people around him. Uncle Yu and Fatty Zhu probably belonged to gamma level aliens. Because of their abilities, one person can be worth hundreds of fighters. Anything else? Zhang Yi asked curiously. Bian Junwu continued. After that, it's the real extraordinary. Delta level, LV4. The most obvious sign of this level is that you can absorb the energy of other aliens to evolve yourself. Zhang Yi was shocked. A question that had been puzzling him was finally explained. No wonder he, Huata, and Liang Yu can absorb other people's abilities. But Uncle Yu and Fatty Zhu couldn't. Bian Junwu said, inhumans at the Delta level may not be able to show strength stronger than the previous levels, but he can continue to evolve and stop when he reaches a certain peak. Therefore, it can be understood that the potential is extremely high. At present, based on preliminary judgment, you, as well as the leaders of various forces, are at this level. Zhang Yi secretly read the word Delta in his heart. The power level given to him by Bian Junwu belongs to LV4 among aliens, which is already a very high evaluation. And then, there is currently the highest level Epsilon, a LV5 alien. When he said this, Bian Junwu's tone became serious. This is currently the strongest combat power of all countries in the world. Among the national treasures, in addition to the ability to swallow other aliens, it also possesses extremely terrifying abilities. An alien of this level is in existence that can be called an important weapon of the country. Zhang Yi stared at Bian Junwu and couldn't help asking, are you an alien of the Epsilon level? Bayan Junwoo's ability to kill thousands of zombies in one blow still shocked Zhang Yi when he thought about it now. Bayan Junwoo smiled lightly, but slowly shook his head. No, I'm just a delta level. Zhang Yi couldn't help, but took a deep breath. Even you are only at the delta level. It's hard for me to imagine how strong an alien at the Epsilon level is. Chapter 462 LV4. After listening to Zhang Yi's words, Bayan Junwoo suddenly laughed. Oh, why, is my understanding wrong? Zhang Yi asked. Bayan Junwoo shook his head. There is indeed some discrepancy with what you understand. In fact, the so-called division of abilities has no absolute relationship with combat effectiveness. What it represents is more of an upper limit of capability. There are many types of abilities, not only those with combat attributes, but also auxiliary ones, or other special types. If the ability is restrained, or the environment is not conducive to the display of the ability, it is not surprising that the high-level alien is killed by the lower-rank alien. Zhang Yi nodded, deeply agreeing with this. If the ability is a kind of weapon, then whether it can exert its power depends on the user of the weapon. He pointed to his nose. So, your judgment of me is a delta level alien, that is, LV4, right? Zhang Yi suddenly laughed. In other words, I'm a different person of the same level as you. You think highly of me. Zhang Yi picked up the teacup in hand and took a sip, but he was thinking in his heart. There is no need to deliberately conceal information from Bayan Junwoo's remarks. Then, he defines himself as a foreigner of the same level as Zhang Yi. There are only two possibilities. First, although his abilities are extremely powerful, there are also huge flaws. Otherwise, with that kind of possible lethality, it is definitely not comparable to Zhang Yi's ability at present. Of course, if it comes to defense, that's another matter. Second, Bayan Junwoo saw the potential of Zhang Yi's space system abilities. Although the different space is not an absolute combat attribute ability, its comprehensive ability is very abnormal. It not only integrates offense and defense, but also has convenient auxiliary functions. Looking at it this way, it is more reasonable to be rated at the delta level. Bayan Junwoo said, this is just a judgment, based on what I know about you. In fact, the evaluation of the level of aliens needs to be divided by professionals in the region. This kind of rating may not be absolutely accurate, it can only be evaluated based on the ability displayed by the alien. I just gave my empirical judgment based on your current performance, and I think you are a Delta class. So, it is very possible for a different person to complete the leap of the supernatural power level. However, Delta is a critical point. If you don't have a cophagia ability, then you can be judged as an alien below LV3. After listening to Bayan Junwoo's introduction, Zhang Yi had a basic idea of the classification of abilities. At least according to Bayan Junwoo's current judgment, his ability potential is at the delta level. That is the potential of level LV4. Although this does not mean absolute combat effectiveness, it also means unlimited potential point. Zhang Yi is quite satisfied with his ability. But immediately afterwards, he became very interested in that mysterious LV5, Epsilon level alien. How strong is a foreigner of that level? Has that kind of character already appeared in this world? Zhang Yi was puzzled, so he took this opportunity to ask. Mr. Bayan, have you ever seen an alien of the Epsilon level? Bayan Junwoo shook his head slowly. I haven't seen it. Zhang Yi was about to say that's really a pity. Bayan Junwoo immediately said, but I know that there is indeed an Epsilon level alien in the Shenjing region. A light flashed in Zhang Yi's eyes. There really is such a character? As a stranger, it is impossible for Zhang Yi not to be curious about this kind of existence. Bayan Junwoo smiled and said, this is not a secret. After all, each region needs to manage a large area around it after the end of the world. In order to deal with all kinds of mutated creatures and groups that take advantage of the opportunity to cause chaos in the last days, we must rely on absolute power to suppress them. When mentioning that Epsilon, Bayan Junwoo also had a bit of admiration and envy in his eyes. That person's ability is so powerful that it cannot be explained by common sense. It is said that anyone who is targeted by him, even thousands of miles away, will be killed by a single thought. That is a true miracle. Zhang Yi almost dropped the water glass in his hand to the ground. He widened his eyes and looked at Bayan Junwoo in disbelief. Are you kidding me? He can kill people thousands of miles away. Could it be that his ability is a satellite positioning missile? Byung Jun-woo raised the corners of his mouth and looked at the snow scene outside the window. It's much more convenient than that. All I know is that the person he targets will definitely die. And it doesn't matter whether you flee to the ends of the earth. Zhang Yi put his hand on his forehead. He felt that his head was a bit messy. This thing can only be explained by metaphysics. Byung Jun-woo said indifferently. God himself likes to roll dice, so it is not surprising what the world will become. Theoretically speaking, there is still a final level of alien ability, which is the legendary LV6, Omega level alien. This level only exists in theory. It has never appeared in the past era. It's just that someone has proposed an alien form with unlimited growth space and unlimited power. When you reach that level, you're probably a god in the true sense. Cough cough. Forehead cough cough. Just as he was talking, he suddenly supported the table with one hand, covered his mouth with the other hand, and coughed violently. The movement was so loud that even the table in front of it shook violently. Seeing that the water in the cup was splashing, Zhang Yi silently took half a step back with his chair. Captain Byung, are you okay? Do you want me to call a doctor for you? Byung Jun-woo coughed for a long time before he stopped. He let go of his hand, and there was a trace of blood on the corner of his mouth, which he wiped away calmly. This scene did not escape Zhang Yi's sharp eyes. No need, it's just an old problem. Byung Jun-woo said lightly. Seeing Zhang Yi's strange eyes, Byung Jun-woo just said disapprovingly, I'm terminally ill, and I don't have a few days left to live. He spoke too calmly, as if evaluating the body of an insignificant person. If it wasn't for this, I wouldn't have taken the initiative to apply to lead the team to deal with such a troublesome problem. Zhang Yi's heart skipped a beat. It was exactly as he thought. The old man in front of him has a serious problem with his body. However, is he a natural disease, or is it a sequela caused by supernatural powers? Or, like those reformed people in the Zishan base, he is actually a man-made alien, so he has a major physical defect? Various speculations filled Zhang Yi's mind. However, it is inconvenient for him to ask directly, because it must be a secret of the Jiangnan region. He could only say in a comforting tone, now that medicine is so advanced, all cancers can be cured. What terminal illnesses can't be cured? My family's doctor is the attending doctor of the #1 People's Hospital in Xianhai City. Ask her to give you a physical examination. Maybe it will work. Byung Jun-woo kept a straight face and silently listened to Zhang Yi's words. Then he said, you don't need to test me. I'm a dying person. I came here this time only in the hope that I can make more contributions to the Jiangnan region before I die. In exchange for my wife and children have a better living environment. As he said that, he took off the pair of toad glasses that had been wearing on his eyes in front of Zhang Yi. His face was extremely pale, but his pupils were even whiter. It was a sickly off-white color, the pupils could no longer be seen, and a dead gray pervaded the entire eyeball. My ability is at the expense of eyesight and health. That's why it can only be rated as a delta level. Otherwise, if you give me some more time, I may not be able to advance to become Epsilon. Its fatal flaw makes me a super killer with limited use. Do you understand? The guess in Zhang Yi's heart was confirmed. Sure enough, Byung Jun-woo's abilities did great damage to the body. It will even consume his lifespan. Zhang Yi was silent for a moment, then sighed softly. So that's the case. But I didn't expect that you would tell me your abilities so simply. Chapter 463 Solicitation. Byung Jun-woo didn't have much expression on his face. He just said in an indifferent tone as usual, we need your cooperation in the next operation against the corpse tide in Xianhai City. So it is very important for us to know each other's abilities. This is also to let you know that my abilities cannot be used without limit, and that will speed up my death. Zhang Yi nodded. He also understood that Byung Jun-woo had nothing to say. As the captain of the dispatch team in the Jiangnan region, he was not worried at all that Zhang Yi would use his abilities against him. First of all, Zhang Yi did not dare to be an enemy of Jiangnan region. Secondly, he is no longer afraid of death in his current state. Byung Jun-woo put on the toad glasses while talking. Now I'm almost blind, relying on this auxiliary vision device to see things. Now I see you as a blurry figure emitting red light. Zhang Yi nodded. Byung Jun-woo put his hands on the table and mentioned the topic he had said before again. Are you interested in coming to the Jiangnan region? Your ability has a bright future, and you may be able to advance to the Epsilon level in the future. Small Xianhe City will only limit your future. Zhang Yi is not very interested in Byung Jun-woo's wooing. He smiled and replied, I don't have any ambitions, and I don't even want to be famous and make a career. I just want to live well with the people around me in the last days, and then wait for the world to restart. He secretly said in his heart, going to the Jiangnan region is like you, going out to run missions every day, and even beating life and death. I won't make trouble for myself. Don't be in a hurry to refuse. Byung Jun-woo said. The living environment in Blizzard City is much happier than yours here. In Blizzard City, people can live as they did before the end of the world. There are cities, streets, and bustling night markets, and comfortable apartments. You can't experience these things in Xianhe City anyway. A scene appeared in Zhang Yi's mind. A bustling city surrounded by steel and concrete walls. The streets are connected with vendors and stalls, and many people go shopping happily. Parents hold their children's hands. Couples are talking and laughing, and even the snow falling from the sky has become a Christmas decoration. For a moment, Zhang Yi really looked forward to seeing such a scene again. But he smiled at Byung Jun-woo and looked at the dead snowfield outside the window. Then he asked, can I be as comfortable as the shelter I live in now? Zhang Yi would not believe Byung Jun-woo's trick to coax children. The end of the world is coming. If Blizzard City, the center of the Jiangnan region, really accommodates many people, then it is impossible to maintain a higher standard of living environment. Several large bases also have a comfortable living environment, but that is only for a small number of people to enjoy. Seeing that Zhang Yi was unmoved, Byung Jun-woo said again, Xianhe City is not a safe place. It's right on the East China Sea. If the ice and snow melt in the future, I'm afraid it will be submerged immediately. Also, there may be enemies coming from the other side of the sea. Only the Central Plains is the safest. Have you considered this? The 2 points mentioned by Byung Jun-woo made Zhang Yi frown slightly and fell into silence for a while. Yes, he can ignore the human factor, but he cannot ignore nature. Ice ages are produced by the influence of cosmic fluctuations. Maybe one day Blue Star returns to normal temperature, then the coastal Xianhe City will definitely be submerged by seawater. But let's talk about this later. Always looking forward and backward, who can think of things so long in the future? If you really want to say, the last ice age lasted tens of millions of years. Zhang Yi frowned and replied, who can say for sure what will happen in the future? Let's talk about it then. Byung Jun-woo saw that Zhang Yi's emotions were a little conflicted. He just raised the corners of his mouth slightly and did not continue this topic. Solving the zombie crisis in Xianhe City is the most important thing right now. He only needs to plant a seed in Zhang Yi's heart, and when the time is right in the future, he may be able to let Zhang Yi go to the Jiangnan region. After all, his life is not long. It was so easy to find a good Delta level seedling. It would be great if he could make up for the vacancy in the investigation team after his death. Then, the two chatted about the tide of corpses. Zhang Yi didn't hold anything back in front of Byung Jun-woo. He told all the information about zombies and rats. Still the same sentence, they came here to help them solve the problem, and Zhang Yi will benefit if the tide of corpses is eliminated as soon as possible. After drinking a cup of hot water, Byung Jun-woo slowly got up. I have finished what I have to say, and we will stop bothering you. I will contact you if necessary. After speaking, he turned around and walked outside the house. Zhang Yi stood up and followed. Why don't you have a meal together? You are here. He was really worried that these people asked to stay. However, it can be seen from their attitudes that, although they are envious of Zhang Yi's shelter, they are not overly coveted. Obviously their living environment in Blizzard City is also very good. After all, they are all quite high level ability users. There is no need to eat. We have brought our own military rations. And we still have things to do next. Byung Jun-woo rejected Zhang Yi's kindness. The two came to the living room, but the living room was very quiet. The members of the investigation team had little communication with the aborigines in the shelter, and the atmosphere was even a little stiff. Seeing two people coming out of the hut, both groups seemed relieved. Byung Junwoo said to his team members, "It's enough to rest, we should set off." Several team members put down the tea in their hands without hesitation and stood up. "Thank you for the hospitality." Several people thanked Zhang Yi and Zhao Ke. When Wu Di walked to Zhang Yi's side, there was a clear fighting spirit in his eyes. "Zhang Yi, next time we have a chance, how about we two discuss each other?" Byung Junwoo's emphasis on Zhang Yi has aroused Wu Di's attention. And according to what Byung Junwoo expressed, Zhang Yi is likely to become a member of their team in the future. Wu Di naturally wanted to test Zhang Yi's weight. Zhang Yi smiled lightly, but did not answer. Frontier Wu shouted at him, "What time is it now? Don't mess around." Wu Di scratched his head with a smile, and then walked out. Zhang Yi and others watched them leave. Byung Junwoo and others got into the car, and the car left the shelter, and everyone in the shelter began to talk about it. "These people are so murderous. Yeah, you can feel it from a distance. It's completely different from those people you met before." Zhang Yi took a deep breath and muttered to himself, "Fortunately, it's not an enemy. Otherwise, we would be in big trouble." Among these 7 people, Byung Junwoo's strength is needless to say, and that kind of terrifying ability is unmatched in the entire Xianhe city. Even Zhang Yi, if he meets him without preparation, he will be instantly killed. However, if he is prepared well, the current defensive power of Dimensional Gate can definitely block the attack of the next military force, judging by the power of his attack today. Everyone has seen the strength of the others. Kang Sheng, who is not very high in the team, easily killed Chen Jingguan, the second in command of Zhaoyu base. No one can imagine how terrifying the strength of such a team is. However, Zhang Yi believes that it will definitely not be difficult for the 7 of them to destroy a base, because there is still a behemoth standing behind them, Jiangnan district. At this moment, Yang Xingxin's cold voice reached Zhang Yi's ears. "But with only 7 people here, it may not be so easy to solve the problem of the corpse tide." That's not good news. When everyone heard Yang Xingxin's words, they couldn't help but look at this talented girl with a superior IQ. Zhang Yi looked down at her and asked seriously, "Xingxin, what do you think?" Yang Xingxin controlled the wheelchair and came to the crowd. Her cold eyes shone with wisdom. The Jiangnan region sent them here, not necessarily expecting them to be able to solve the huge tide of corpses at once. Maybe they are just the vanguard. Once the source of the corpse tide is found out, there may be large-scale troops stationed in Xianhe City. At that time, the entire structure of Xianhe City will be rewritten. We will inevitably be affected. Zhang Yi nodded. "It is indeed very possible." Fatty Zhu said worriedly, "At that time, we won't be kicked out of the shelter, right?" Zhang Yi's team can dominate one side in Xianhe City, occupying 2 sites in Zishan District and Lujiang District. But that was also because his opponents were not strong. At most they were small groups of troops stationed in Xianhe City. However, the strength of the Jiangnan region is not an order of magnitude at all. In addition to the weapon level, they also have many big killers, and they can destroy the shelter. Moreover, at the level of soldiers and aliens, the Jiangnan region far surpassed the major forces in Xianhe City. Zhang Yi frowned. Probably not. His tone was a little uncertain. However, with the strength of their team, even if the Jiangnan region sent people to Xianhe City, they should be more polite to them. In the last days, not everyone has to fight and kill, and sometimes people have to pay attention to the world. But Yang Xingxin said, if that's the case, it's actually not the worst ending. The worst thing is that the investigation team found that the scale of the corpse tide is too large, and they need to pay a huge price to completely clean up the corpse tide. At that time, the problem will be troublesome. Everyone couldn't help but click in their hearts. No one knew how many zombies there were underground in Xianhe City. If all the dead became zombies, it would be on the scale of tens of millions. It is almost self-evident how Jiangnan region will deal with Xianhe City at that time. Zhang Yi took a deep breath. So, we have to spare no effort to solve the corpse tide problem with them. Chapter 464 The Worst Ending. Zhang Yi knew in his heart that Xianhe City must completely solve the problem of corpses, so that they can live in peace in the future. However, one thing suddenly came to his mind. That was when Byung Junwoo was about to leave, and invited him to the Jiangnan region. Zhang Yi suddenly came to his senses at this time, and only then did he understand what Byung Junwoo hadn't finished saying. This is a way out for him. If the tide of corpses in Shanghai City proves to be unable to be handled properly, then the last resort should be to completely wipe out the entire city. I'm afraid that by then, Zhang Yi will have no choice but to leave here. He couldn't help thinking in his heart, although the shelter said it was able to defend against H attacks, if the goal of the Jiangnan region is to wipe out the entire Shanghai City, the level used is completely different. I can't take such a risk. It would be best to be able to deal with the problem of zombies right now. The truth is easy to say, but how to deal with it? Zhang Yi had no clue in his heart. Everyone had nervous expressions on their faces, for fear that the least expected thing would happen. Everyone sat on the sofa in the living room, and Zhang Yi crossed his arms and thought hard about where he should break the situation. Everyone also started a brainstorm and spoke freely. Zhao Ke frowned slightly and said worriedly, "Now we all know that the zombies and rat swarms are concentrated underground. Their numbers are astonishing, and they probably occupy the entire subway system of Shanghai City. With our current manpower, it's unrealistic to face the tide of zombies and rats. Unless we find the Corpse King and behead him." While Zhao Ke was talking, she put her hand lightly on Zhang Yi's shoulder and leaned against his body. When she is nervous, she likes to get a little comfort from Zhang Yi. We can't do anything about these things. We can only hope that the Jiangnan region will provide help. So Zhang Yi, you don't have to worry too much. After all, our capabilities are limited. What Zhao Ke said was correct. It is impossible for the 5 major forces to mobilize on a large scale in the extremely cold environment to conduct investigations outside. Whether it is Zhang Yi or the others, they are all just temporary teams built in the last days. No one has experience dealing with such a dire situation. Zhang Yi raised his head and said leisurely, "All fear comes from the unknown. Our biggest trouble is that we know too little about the corpses. What the hell is a Corpse King? Is it a zombie that has mutated to produce wisdom, or is it a strange person? He doesn't even know what the Corpse King is, let alone beheading." Fatty Zoo interrupted at this time. "We can only judge now that the outbreak of the zombie crisis has nothing to do with the other 4 forces. After all, the losses they have suffered are quite miserable." Yang Xingxin immediately retorted, "You can't say it so absolutely. Even if they have suffered a lot, it can't be concluded that this matter really has nothing to do with them. For example, at the Zishan base, they conducted a large number of human experiments. Bao Buki and other families also had similar behaviors, which led to the tide of corpses. After the end of the world, the major forces in Shanghai City are frantically upgrading their armed forces and have used almost all available methods. The artificial human project at Zishan base and the military stimulant at Jiangsheng base are clear examples. Everyone expressed their views one after another, but it's basically goose walk without evidence. Their intelligence is too little. The sudden tide of corpses was like a brand new force, which caught them off guard." Zhang Yi propped up his chin with both hands. He himself was puzzled by the sudden tide of corpses. What is the Corpse King who controls everything behind the scenes? If it was an alien who wanted to control the tide of corpses, to eliminate the other major forces in Shanghai City, become the king of Shanghai City, and even expand to the surrounding areas, then with human IQ, it should have broken through the defenses of these major forces long ago. But the zombies encountered by Zhang Yi and others did not show a high IQ, probably like a 4 or 5-year-old child who is constantly learning. But if the Corpse King is a corpse that mutates to give birth to wisdom, why does it launch continuous attacks against the 5 major forces? It was as if it had known for a long time that there were 5 powerful human organizations in 5 distant corners of Shanghai City. This contradictory logic depicted a special thing in Zhang Yi's mind. It looks like something that is being manipulated by humans, but it doesn't look like something that a human being with a normal IQ does. Okay, is it a mentally handicapped stranger? Zhang Yi himself was amused by his own thoughts. Let's wait and see. At least we have to see how good the people sent from the Jiangnan region are. They have richer team combat experience, strong aliens, and advanced technology in the Jiangnan region. They should be able to achieve some results. If they can't solve the trouble by then, we'll take another shot. Zhang Yi temporarily made a plan. With his double door ability, if he enters the underground to fight, he can at least guarantee his escape without worry. But Bian Junwu didn't invite him to join, and he was too happy to open his mouth. The headquarters of snow worship cult, St. John's Cathedral. Zhang Yi came back here. He opened the door and walked in. Yuan Kanggai stood in front of the crucifix and prayed devoutly as usual. Yuan Kanggai stood 3 meters behind her. Yuan Kanggai slowly opened his closed eyes, then turned around to face Zhang Yi. Bane's slender hands were folded in front of him. She looked at Zhang Yi with a rare softness in her eyes. "What did you see this time?" Zhang Yi's expression was very serious. The Jiangnan region sent a group of very scary people. He told Yuan Kanggai what he saw and heard today. Yuan Kanggai heard the strength of the investigation team, especially after the frontier army was able to kill thousands of zombies in one blow. His frozen face, that had not melted for thousands of years, was also moved. "Jiangnan region," she murmured. "Will they affect us?" Yuan Kanggai asked. Zhang Yi was also not sure. He said, "The current situation in Qianhe City has too much impact on the surrounding area. If the Jiangnan region sends troops to intervene, I'm afraid it will not be easy for us to develop after worshipping the snow sect. Moreover, Bayan Junwu gave us a warning. That is, if the problem of the corpse tide cannot be resolved, the Jiangnan region may use the last resort." Yuan Kanggai's eyes flickered. "The last resort?" Zhang Yi said firmly. "We can't just sit back and watch this happen." Yuan Kanggai nodded. "I'm afraid we are not the only ones thinking about this issue. Zhang Yi, Xiao Honglian, Weiding He, and Crossing Shan don't want to see that kind of result either." As Yuan Kanggai said. After Bayan Junwu warned them, everyone was very worried. Because of this, they will also choose to do their best to help Bayan Junwu to solve the current zombie problem. Because assisting Bayan Junwu and others with all their strength is actually helping themselves. Chapter 465. The investigation team left Zhang Yi's house and rushed to investigate the intelligence of the corpses without stopping. They were driving a black RV with a huge amount of space inside. 7 people live in it, and the problems of eating, drinking and lazard can be solved. This car was specially built for them by engineers from the Jiangnan region, just to facilitate their long-term missions outside. In addition to the huge space, its strength is comparable to that of a chariot, and it is made of aviation materials. Before coming, they already had a lot of information about Qianhe City. The intelligence network in the Jiangnan region was beyond what Zhang Yi and the others could have imagined. To give the simplest example, a satellite navigation system. Zhang Yi and the others basically lost this function. However, there are military satellites in the Jiangnan region, which can grasp everything that happens on land from distant space. In other words, everything that Zhang Yi and the others did was clearly seen by the nebula system. Bayan Junwu and the others have a lot of information, and now they also need to go to various regions for field inspections. The first stop is the Sigwa subway line blocked by Zhang Yi. When everyone came to the entrance of the subway line, they could see a long hill rising on the ground from a distance, going straight all the way, like a long snake. Meng Xiao said, "It seems that, after irrigating a large amount of seawater, it freezes and expands, so the ground is cracked." Bayan Junwu walked to the subway line and saw the solid ice below through the crack. He couldn't help squatting down and put his right hand over the ice, as if he wanted to feel the giant dragon freezing the entire subway line. Bayan Junwu closed his eyes and imagined the scene of Zhang Yi pouring a large amount of seawater from a different space. Thinking of this, he couldn't help taking a deep breath. It's amazing. This guy is a genius. Woody on the side crossed his arms, heard Bayan Junwu's praise, and said disapprovingly, "Boss, is it necessary to praise him? In my opinion, this is just a very common method. If my ability is space, I also know that I need to use something to block this subway." But in fact, what he did was just drinking poison to quench his thirst and temporarily solve the problems around him. But it didn't completely quell the unrest of the zombies. "What's the use?" Vice Captain Bailey Chanking laughed and said, "Woody, your temper is still as proud as your name." The captain has his reasons for saying this. You have to learn to discover the strengths of others, and don't always look down on others. Woody raised his eyebrows and said disapprovingly, "It's not that I look down on him. It's just that in this kind of underground passage, if I were here, I could wipe out all the zombies single-handedly." Bayan Junwu put away his right hand and stood up. Hearing Woody's arrogant speech, He said lightly. "Oh, are you that confident?" "Of course," Woody said confidently. His ability, what he is best at, is to deal with such occasions. Group battles are his forte. Byung Jun-woo asked back, "But do you know the strength of the Corpse King?" Woody was stunned for a moment, and then said, "I haven't seen that thing before. How do I know?" From the information they collected, they only know that there are powerful bronze armored corpses. As for the Corpse King, even Zhang Yi, who went deep into the subway tunnel, had never seen him before, let alone understand its strength. Byung Jun-woo said indifferently, "But Zhang Yi and the others have eliminated the zombies on the entire subway line with 0 casualties. Don't be blindly obsessed with abilities. The most important thing is how to display your abilities. Zhang Yi's ability is not purely in combat. It is the most amazing thing, to be able to do this with his mind." Byung Jun-woo raised his head and looked at the land in the distance. There is a long and protruding earth dragon there. Walking along this subway line, you will arrive at Songsuan, the transfer station of Xianhe City. Going further north, we will soon reach Xianfeng district, which is the territory of the Snow Worship sect. Woody still had a bit of dissatisfaction on his face, and he murmured, "So what if he has brains? If we need new teammates, they must be strong fighters. We don't lack bags." Looking at the childish Woody, Byung Jun-woo just smiled and didn't say anything to blame. Woody has always had such a personality, and everyone has long been used to it. Especially after Byung Jun-woo's physical condition appeared, his behavior became more and more abnormal. Everyone understood Woody's reason for doing this, but it was hard to explain. Let's go to the field to see what the zombie siege looks like." After Byung Jun-woo finished speaking, he took the lead on the snowmobile. The driver was the Vice Captain Bailey Changking, who was about the same age as Byung Jun-woo, over 40 years old. But he didn't have the greasy appearance of a middle-aged man. Instead, he was full of tendon and flesh, majestic like a brown bear. "Captain, where are we going?" "Let's go to Yangsheng base first," Byung Jun-woo said. "Okay." Bailey Changking made a good positioning, then started the car, turned the steering wheel and drove towards Yangsheng base. At this time, the 3 major bases are also busy, because according to the instructions of Byung Jun-woo, they are required to temporarily abandon all ground buildings and transfer all non-combatants to underground shelters. This ensures fewer casualties, and it is possible that zombies that have lost their target will not attack because of the reduced number of people. After the leaders of each family went back, although they felt a little bit reluctant in their hearts, they could only do it honestly. No one dared to fight against the frontier army who represented the will of the Jiangnan region at this time. But easier said than done. Each family has important factories on the surface, and many living materials are directly stacked in warehouses, dormitories, and workshops. There are at least a few thousand people from all parties, and it is very troublesome to clean them up. On the Yangsheng base, Zhao Hongyan had no choice but to stop for a moment, directing the combatants to do a good job of defending the surroundings, while arranging the orderly evacuation of non-combatants. Byung Jun-woo and his vehicles came to the Yangsheng base not far away, found a commanding height and stopped. It is nearly 5 kilometers away from the Yangsheng base, and you can overlook the whole area around the Yangsheng base. Byung Jun-woo sat by the window, stretched out his hand to press the button on the edge of the sunglasses, and adjusted the telescope mode to observe here. They are waiting for the arrival of zombies. Although in the information about Xianhe City, they had heard about corpse waves and rat swarms attacking the human base. But in this case, you have to take a look at it yourself in order to get the information you want. This is why Byung Jun-woo didn't ask people from several major forces to act with them. Time passed slowly, and the sky darkened in an instant. Before everyone had time to notice, they were already blind. The lights around the Yangsheng base were lit. Compared with zombies that can track the breath of living people, human beings need light to fight. On the vehicle of the investigation team, Meng Xiaoyu, an expert in biology and medicine, was using a microwave oven to heat food for everyone. There is a lot of space food in the car, which can be eaten after a little heating, which is very convenient. While eating, everyone held the night vision binoculars to enjoy the good show of the zombie siege. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. we cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 466, Mantis catching cicadas. Zombies emerged from the night, densely packed, covering the entire land like ants. Around the Yangsheng base, the huge space was almost completely covered. Looking around, the number of zombies reached at least tens of thousands. It was the first time that the investigation team had seen such a scene with their own eyes. Meng Xiao's eyes were wide open, and her heart was a little queasy. Even though they knew that these zombies would not threaten their lives, they still felt a little nervous. Sure enough, what I saw in the video data is completely different from what I personally experienced. Meng Xiao couldn't help whispering. Woody said disapprovingly, "It's just a little more targets." "Shut up, be careful to attract the zombies." Bailey Changqing reminded the two humanity in a low voice. The two immediately shut their mouths and then carefully observed the movement of the corpses. At the same time, Meng Xiao did not forget to record the behavior of the corpse group. There were countless zombies, and among them were a large number of screaming giant rats. The small ones were as big as kittens, and the larger ones were as big as dirt dogs. Even among the turbulent swarm of rats, there are aliens as big as piglets. They probably outnumbered the zombies, staining the ground grey. On the side of the Yangsheng base, a counterattack was organized amidst the panic. A fire dragon suddenly appeared from a distance, and then burned all over the base in an instant. On the periphery of the Yangsheng base, there are 3 deep ravines filled with black oil. Once the flame is ignited, it will quickly become 3 walls of fire more than 10 meters high. After those zombies and giant rats approached, flames shot up into the sky. There was only a cracking sound and the screams of giant rats, and hundreds of zombies and giant rats were burned to death. But soon, those zombies gathered together, forming a long and narrow team of more than a dozen. The zombies in front began to jump into the fire pit. Although facing the raging fire, 1 or 2 zombies were quickly burned to carbon after jumping in. But I can't stand the number of zombies. Too many ants can always kill elephants. As a large number of zombies jumped into the fire pit, the flames were suppressed abruptly, and a bridge was piled up. The zombies and rats in the back stepped on the bridge made of corpses, and continued to rush forward. Bian Junwu couldn't help frowning at such a scene. Sure enough, they are an intelligent group. If they are allowed to continue to make trouble, sooner or later it will become a big trouble. A group of brainless zombies is not scary, but if they are controlled by intelligent creatures, it will be terrible. After all, in today's world, the number of dead people is far greater than that of living people. Bailey Changqing whispered, "The individual zombies are obviously not intelligent. We have to find the guy who manipulates them behind the scenes. Don't worry, wait and see." Bian Junwu's voice was extremely calm, even a little indifferent. Zombies and rats quickly broke through the 2 lines of defense, and the 3rd line of defense was already in jeopardy. Soldiers at the Yangsheng base charged forward with flamethrowers, grenades, and explosives, and stood in front of the 3rd line of defense. But in the face of the attack of tens of thousands of zombies, this defense seems so weak. Fortunately, not long after, Zhao Hanglian led his aliens to join the battlefield. Their addition has a remarkable effect. On the battlefield, the combat power that aliens can exert is much stronger than that of ordinary people, especially in the face of such a monster who is not afraid of death. Zhao Hanglian was extremely anxious at this moment, because their non-combatants are still moving. The base situation is still a bit chaotic at this time, which is when they are at their weakest. So she desperately manipulated the flames to kill the zombies and giant rats around her. Purgatory Furnace. Zhao Hanglian stood on a high tower with her arms outstretched, and the raging flames around her turned into more than a dozen thick fire dragons rushing towards her. With the entanglement of the flames, her whole body turned into a huge fireball, and the whole body was covered with hot to white flames. In the next moment, Zhao Hanglian jumped down from the sky and exploded in front of him like a sun. Within a few hundred meters, all the zombies and giant rats were burnt to ashes. Where there are flames, Zhao Hang's ability will be greatly enhanced. She rushed into the place where the corpses were densest and began to forcefully use her personal strength to delay the rhythm of the zombies attacking the base. This approach has been very productive. but the Yangsheng base is too big, and she can't defend every corner. There was still a place where zombies and giant rats jumped into the crowd and started bloody killing and eating. The screams spread throughout the battlefield. However, judging from the black bloodstains everywhere in the factory, such a scene is not uncommon. Every day, they need to sacrifice a large number of soldiers in exchange for peace. Bayan Junwoo and others watched silently from a distance, and no one planned to help. They just came to observe the signs of zombie activity, not to help Yangsheng base solve the current problems. The battle situation in the battlefield became more and more intense. In the darkness, the army of zombies has surrounded the Yangsheng base, and the two sides are fighting fiercely. It is often the zombies that capture an area, and then the Yangsheng base immediately has a foreign captain with soldiers, desperately trying to regain the lost ground. Have all the zombies come out? Bayan Junwoo observed the battle situation through a telescope, and asked Yi Jikun, a blasting expert and engineer next to him. Yi Jikun held a thick black computer in his hand. It looked like a huge brick, but even in such a severe cold environment, it could still work well. Yi Jikun's computer screen displayed a map of Xianhai City. He narrowed his field of vision to the area around the Yangsheng base. Then he was able to clearly see the surrounding movements from a bird's eye view, including every combatant and zombie. Even their own positions are clearly seen. This is the function of Nebula, the most advanced satellite system in China. Yi Jikun saw that the corpses had appeared one after another, and there were no more zombies at the surrounding subway exits, so he said to Bayan Junwoo, the zombies in the subway have already come out. However, there are some big guys among them. It should be the bronze armored corpse that Zhang Yi and the others mentioned earlier. Bayan Junwoo's tone changed somewhat. Oh, interesting. According to the information provided by Zhang Yi and the others, when the zombie army attacked in the past, it always focused on ordinary zombies and rat groups. But now, the elite among the zombies, the bronze armored corpse, also appeared. In other words, has the attack of the corpse group upgraded? Will this have something to do with our arrival? Bayan Junwoo had such a question in his mind. But he still said to everyone, let's go. Since they are now empty inside, it's time for us to act. In the darkness, a huge bronze armored corpse appeared in front of the battle line. It brought a huge shock to everyone in the Yangsheng base. This kind of monster whose body is not afraid of flames and is stronger than steel is not something ordinary soldiers can deal with. Zhao Hanglian also clearly remembered that Dong Hu was torn to pieces by two bronze armored corpses. However, the 7 Bayan Junwoo didn't even look here. They turned around and got into the car, then made a big circle and drove towards the nearest subway entrance. Chapter 467 Beheading. According to the information provided by each of their families, the number of corpses dispatched each time is limited. At the highest moment, there are only tens of thousands of zombies. Obviously, the number of zombies that the Corpse King can control at the same time is also capped, or the speed at which it transforms corpses into zombies is not as fast as expected. And we can attack the zombie base camp while the tide of corpses is attacking Yangsheng base. As long as we can kill the Corpse King, the zombies will become disorderly, and the threat of zombies in a disordered state will be greatly reduced. In the car, Yi Jikun was looking at the computer while analyzing the current information to everyone. The night was very dark, they didn't turn on the lights, and they avoided the corpses far away to avoid being discovered by them. In the distance, the battle was raging, and the battle between the Yangsheng base and the corpses became more intense. The screams, roars of corpses, and screams of rats could be heard endlessly, but 7 people didn't care. Having experienced the battlefield, they have already tempered their hearts to be as cold as iron. They don't lose sight of their core mission in sympathy. Or maybe they don't have much sympathy for those people. Bayan Junwoo said to everyone, be prepared to fight. According to Zhang Yi, there must be a large number of bronze armor corpses underground. There are also corpse kings with unknown abilities. Woody clenched his fists and rattled. He said with a smile, boss, what threat can this dead thing pose to us? Not to mention that the underground is now empty. At that time, you don't need to take action. I can settle them all by myself. Bailey Changking sighed. He looked helplessly at the young and vigorous Woody and raised his eyebrows. Woody, we are not here to fight this time. No matter how many zombies kill, it is meaningless to let the Corpse King run away. Remember this, don't indulge in entanglement with things other than the Corpse King. Woody's expression froze, and he reached out and scratched the back of his head. Sorry, I forgot this. 10 minutes later, they came to the subway entrance where the zombies poured out. There were no traces of zombies around, and they had already gone to Yangsheng base. 7 people got out of the car, and Byun Junwoo was already holding a black pistol in his hand. Its shape is a bit strange, the barrel is bigger and longer, and it is dark without a trace of reflection. The weapons of other people are similar, all of which are strangely shaped firearms. Only Bailey Changking, he did not use a gun, but opened a huge box he carried with him, and took out 2 pieces of weapons from it. He skillfully assembled the weapon, and it turned into a weird spear more than 2 meters long. The gun head is very long, like a huge cone. This is a very rare knight's-long spear, and it has been eliminated on the battlefield hundreds of years ago. Its size is extraordinarily huge, and its weight is also frighteningly large, so it can only be used when cavalry charges. It is difficult for infantry to use this weapon flexibly, but this huge weapon is very comprehensive, whether it is used as a blunt weapon to smash, sweep, chop, or as a sharp weapon to stab. It can be said that it is most suitable for the strengthening system, especially for extremely powerful aliens. Among the 7 people, only Woody put his hands in his pockets and didn't hold any weapons at all. 7 people came to the entrance of the tunnel and did not go down in a hurry. Meng Xiao walked to the entrance of the tunnel and slowly squatted down. Her right hand was placed empty above the entrance. Empty photo. An invisible spiritual force explored along the entrance of the tunnel towards the bottom. This force travels along the wall, and when it encounters a fork, it will split into 2, and then continue to explore. Tens of seconds later, Meng Xiao put away his right hand, and said to everyone, there are still some zombies in the tunnel, but no special individuals have been found. Meng Xiao's ability can only cover a range of 2 kilometers. In other words, the Corpse King is still hiding in the depths of the tunnel. Byun Junwoo said decisively, go down. As he spoke, he held the gun in his right hand and jumped into the tunnel first. The others followed him and jumped down without hesitation. The 7 people moved forward quickly along the tunnel. With Meng Xiao's ability, they could clearly judge the terrain, as well as the number of zombies and giant rats in the dark. Bailey Changking was at the front of the team. The sporadic zombies he encountered along the way were all smashed by him with the knight's spear. When walking straight for 5 kilometers, Meng Xiao suddenly said, found it. There are a large number of corpses ahead. This should be their lair. In her consciousness, she saw densely packed zombies, even more than the ones outside. And among this group of zombies, she also saw a bronze-armored corpse whose combat power was comparable to that of a stranger. Byun Junwoo's expression froze. Did you find the Corpse King? Meng Xiao frowned, searching among the corpses with mental strength. The Corpse King. There are too many zombies underground, and it is difficult to identify individuals one by one. Meng Xiao subconsciously looked for bigger and stronger existences, but apart from the bronze armor corpse, there were no other zombies with obvious characteristics. But suddenly, she saw a strange color. I only found a white-haired monkey. Byun Junwoo, white-haired monkey? He said without hesitation. Let's go, clean them up first. It's best to catch them alive. No one has ever seen the Corpse King, and this existence itself is a kind of speculation by everyone. So it could be anything, even an ordinary looking zombie. The only thing Byun Junwoo can judge is that since the Corpse King wants to command the battle, it is impossible to be too far away from the corpses. This point was corroborated by Zhang Yi's underground trip. Although Zhang Yi did not see the Corpse King, but that time, they were lured to an open area by a group of corpses, and then surrounded by a large number of zombies and bronze-armored corpses. If it wasn't for Zhang Yi's ability to travel through space, it would be dangerous even underground. But Zhang Yi can conclude that at that time, the Corpse King must be nearby, directing the corpse group to attack. Then, the Corpse King must be among the group of zombies. As for whether it is the white-haired monkey, let's talk about it after catching it. The 7 people ran quickly towards the group of zombies at an extremely fast speed. As we move forward, we formulate battle plans while fighting. Bailey, Woody, clean up the corpses. Xiaomeng, pay attention. To monitor the corpse group, check for abnormal individuals. Notify me in time. The others, together with me, are responsible for capturing the corpse king. Everyone said in unison, yes. Soon, they came to the place where the zombies gathered according to Meng Xiao's guidance. The group of corpses found them, and immediately let out a piercing roar. Bailey Changqing laughed loudly, give me another death. He waved the night spear in his hand, and rushed towards the corpses like a humanoid tank. Boom. In an instant, hundreds of zombies were swept away, stinky blood sprayed out like rain, stumped limbs and zombie heads were thrown high. All of a sudden, Bailey Changqing cleared the crowded corpses into a passage tens of meters long. Chapter 468 Floating. Woody curled his lips and said, Deputy team, your speed is too slow. You'd better get out of the way and watch me. As he spoke, he slowly opened his hands. In the darkness, a bright light suddenly appeared, floating over his right shoulder. It was a fist-sized ball of light with sharp and bright light. Immediately afterwards, a second one appeared on the left-hand side, and a third one appeared above the head. A few seconds later, dozens of balls of light surrounded him, like the halo of gods in myths and legends. Woody opened his arms. These balls of light moved quickly and shot forward fiercely, turning into a long beam of light. A dazzling white light enveloped everything in front of him. After the bodies of those zombies touched the white light, a big hole was pierced through without hindrance. Bright beams of light passed through the corpses, and the zombies were shot to pieces, as if they were made of paper. Ha 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 ha. Master is the king of the battlefield. Woody laughed wildly. His ability is Floating Cannon, a special type, which transforms spiritual energy into an energy cannon with strong penetrating power. This ability is especially powerful in group battles. Under the attack of the floating cannon, the corpses were torn apart like rags. Bailey Changqing smiled helplessly and touched his head. In terms of cutting grass, his Malay-type alien is indeed far worse than Woody. The crowd of corpses could hardly block the crowd. The crowd moved on. Finally, this powerful destructive power caught the Corpse King's attention. 4 huge bronze-armored corpses came out from the end of the tunnel. They are 3 to 4 meters tall, like giant stick insects, tall and thin, with long legs and a thin waist. It's a pity that the perfect body characteristics for human beings look extremely strange when pressed against them. When Woody's floating cannon hit them, the power was not so impressive. Woody narrowed his eyes. Is this the so-called bronze armor corpse? I want to see how powerful it is. He put away the ball of light around him, and a white light slowly condensed from his right hand. But Bian Junwoo held him down. You take a rest first. Although Woody's floating cannon is powerful, it needs to consume mental power. In a sense, if this ability is used too much, it will cause irreparable damage to the ability user. Woody still listened to what Bian Junwoo said. He put away his abilities, then leave it to you. Several people in the Bian Junwoo knew that the fighting power of this bronze-armored corpse was very powerful, which was not the same as that of ordinary zombies. So they didn't care. One of us. As Bian Junwoo said, he had already selected one of them and raised the large black pistol in his hand. Boom. A muffled gunshot sounded, and a bullet accurately hit the eye on the chest of the bronze-armored corpse. After being hit, the iron and reinforced bronze-armored corpse staggered back a few steps. This weapon is obviously not an ordinary pistol. It's the pistol in Wang Wen's poem. Bian Junwoo walked towards the bronze armor corpse step by step with a blank face, and the bullets in his hand hit its slender torso one by one. It actually forced it back step by step. Bailey Changqing, Kang Sheng and Qi Guangming also selected their opponents. Bailey Changqing brandished his knight spear, rushed directly to fight with a bronze armored corpse. Kang Sheng smashed his fists together, and the color of his body instantly changed to a dark silver metallic color. The ability of Forged Steel allows him to have the strongest and sharpest body, turning every part of his body into a deadly weapon. I saw him dodge, and the man appeared in the air. His right leg slashed fiercely on the shoulder of a bronze-armored corpse like a long knife. The bronze-armored corpse fell to its knees on the ground after being hit by this blow, and a terrifying cut was cut in its shoulder, exposing the bones inside. Kang Sheng's expression was a little astonished because he saw that the bone turned out to be blood red. It's hard enough. His kick can split the car apart. At this moment, a beam of light passed by him and shot at the chest of the bronze armored corpse. The bronze armored corpse's chest was immediately shot out with a horrible wound, bloody and bloody. Kang Sheng turned his head and saw Qi Guangming holding a weird black sniper, smiling at him. At this time, we still need to cooperate. On the other side, Bian Junwu had already pressed the bronze armored corpse against the wall, then stuffed the pistol into its mouth and blasted its head upwards from the mouth. The remaining half of his body slumped to the ground, falling heavily into the stench of corpse water. Although the fighting power of the 4 bronze armored corpses is strong, they can only be regarded as appetizers in front of the investigation team. Meng Xiaoyu pressed his head with one hand and suddenly said, "There is movement among the corpses. The white-haired monkey and the 6 bronze armored corpses are about to run away. A large number of corpses are surrounding them." Bian Junwu supported his own toad mirror and said in a cold voice, "Now it can be concluded that the white-haired monkey is the corpse king. The corpses are here to delay time. Go, we must catch it today. We must not let it escape. The corpse king has a powerful evolutionary ability and his wisdom is constantly growing. If it escapes this time, after learning about everyone's abilities, it will be even more difficult to catch it next time." So the crowd kept on chasing in the direction the corpse king was escaping. But this time, the hordes of corpses and rats surged from the end of the tunnel like crazy. Bian Junwu didn't want to waste any more time, so he took off his sunglasses directly. The ability of Nerience was activated, and a burst of dazzling white light lit up in the tunnel. In an instant, the 1,000-meter-long tunnel had been cleaned up. With this blow, thousands of zombies were directly wiped out. Bian Junwu felt a pain in his chest and couldn't help coughing violently while covering his mouth. But he didn't stop walking, chasing. There can be no delay in time, and everyone understands this, so they chased in the direction where the corpse king was escaping. Along the way, sporadic groups of giant rats and corpses tried to come out to stop them, but they were all wiped out by Bailey Changqing and Kang Sheng. And at this moment, outside the Yangsheng base, those zombies attacking the base fiercely seemed to have received some kind of signal and stopped their attack. They turned around at the same time and hurriedly rushed towards the direction of the tunnel. As the corpses left, the rats joined the retreating army. Zhao Hongyan was burning with flames all over her body, like a flame god, but the violent ups and downs of her chest showed that it was not easy for her to fight. Seeing the group of corpses and rats that suddenly retreated, she was a little taken aback. How is this going? She didn't know that, while they were fighting, the underground corpse king was also facing the crisis of life and death. At this time, Bian Junwu and others had already caught up with the escaped corpse king. Chapter 469, Killing the Corpse King. The group of corpses standing between the group of corpses and the investigation team was easily torn open like a rag. The entire investigation team rushed to the vicinity of the corpse king like lightning. It was also the first time for them to see the white-haired monkey so closely. It was protected by 6 huge bronze armored corpses, and 1 bronze armored corpse carried it and rushed into the depths of the subway. Caught alive. Bian Junwu gave a shout. Qi Guangming raised his black sniper rifle and pointed it at the leg of the bronze armored corpse carrying the white-haired monkey. The slender leg joints were hit by a white light, and they shattered with a click. The bronze armored corpse roared and fell to the ground, while the white-haired monkey on its shoulder screamed and fell to the ground. At this time, Bailey Changqing rushed over with the knight's spear in his hand and directly pressed the muzzle of the gun against its head. Clear fear flashed in the white-haired monkey's eyes and then shrank on the ground without moving. Seeing this, the bronze armored corpses around were too afraid to go forward to attack and could only growl at the side, threatening Bailey Changqing to let it go. Bian Junwu's eyes fixed on the white-haired monkey. It is impossible for the creature locked by him to escape, and he can destroy it in an instant. A group of people came to the white-haired monkey and turned a blind eye to the bronze armored corpses. With the white-haired monkey in hand, the bronze armored corpses dared not move at all. This is the corpse king who secretly commanded the entire zombie army. Looking at the white-haired monkey on the ground, Bian Junwu couldn't help raising his eyebrows. Wu Di grinned and said, "I thought this thing could control the corpses. It must be very powerful. So it's so weak." But Bailey Changqing said calmly, "No, this is reasonable. If it can really control countless zombies, it means that it is the brain of the corpse group, or some kind of alien in the control system. Then, it's not so surprising that it doesn't have strong personal combat power. Meng Xiaoyu touched his chin and muttered to himself, no wonder, even if it can control a huge group of corpses, it doesn't dare to easily launch an all-out war against human forces. Because its body is too weak, a large number of zombies and bronze armor corpses must be left to protect its safety. As far as its own fighting power is concerned, any adult may be able to kill it. Several bronze armored corpses around roared from time to time, but they obviously didn't know what to do without the command of the Corpse King. There was fear in the eyes of the white-haired monkey, and it kept making strange noises from its throat. Bian Junwu pointed his gun at the white-haired monkey's head and said coldly, let them kill each other. A hint of hatred flashed in the white-haired monkey's eyes, but its cry suddenly became louder. The next moment, the 6 bronze-armored corpses next to them roared angrily and rushed towards several people. The white-haired monkey has realized that he can't survive. Even if he falls into the hands of the person in front of him, he will be tortured, so he chooses to die together. But in the face of absolute strength, this kind of struggle is useless. Bailey Chanking spat, holding the knight's spear in his hand and exerting force suddenly. Ha 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 ha. He laughed loudly, and a black light emerged from his body, covering his whole body. Then, like a god of war, he rushed to the 6 bronze-armored corpses alone. The huge knight's spear swept out, cutting off the 6 bronze-armored corpses fiercely in an instant. With just one blow, they were wiped out by Bailey Chanking. Green blood and red bones flew everywhere. This is the strength of the vice captain of the investigation team, Iron Fist, Bailey Chanking. But there are not only 6 bronze-armored corpses here, but the roar of zombies can be heard from far away in the tunnel, and the tide of corpses is also summoned by the Corpse King. You are dishonest. Bian Junwu looked coldly at the white-haired monkey under the gun. He knew that this thing would not survive. If you don't kill it, everyone will be surrounded by an army of zombies who are driving back later. No one knew how many zombies there were underground, and Bian Junwu didn't dare to take risks. So he pulled the trigger resolutely and shot through the head of the white-haired monkey. Its body is similar to that of ordinary humans, and there is nothing special about it. This shot made a huge hole in the back of its head. Meng Xiaoyu took out a body bag from his backpack and put the white-haired monkey away. Everyone quickly left the subway and returned to the ground through the nearest subway exit. After coming to the ground, they saw an extremely unimaginable scene. On the vast snowfield, tens of thousands of zombies came from everywhere. But at this moment, they were looking in the direction of the subway, standing blankly on the snowfield. Their actions were very dazed and stiff, and they lost their target. Bian Junwu said, without the control of the Corpse King, these ordinary zombies would not take collective action. Meng Xiaoyu also said, in this way, no matter how many they are, it will be difficult for them to pose a threat to large human forces. Intelligent zombies and unintelligent zombies are two completely different creatures. Although the latter is troublesome, it will waste some time at most to solve it. Zombies nearby noticed their existence, their eyes glowed red, and they roared and ran towards them. Bian Junwu said, let's go, don't get entangled with these things. They will disappear by themselves in a short time. Zombies without the command of the Corpse King cannot exist for too long. They themselves are the carriers of the virus, and the body will quickly break down if they are not fed. The soldiers from the border army were also not interested in cleaning up the corpses here, so they left the place quickly. They returned to where they parked the vehicle earlier. There are also a large number of zombies gathered here, but they are obviously not interested in iron lumps like cars. After Bian Junwu and the others cleaned up a batch of zombies, they took the body of the captured white-haired monkey into the car and drove away. The next thing to do is to dissect the body of the white-haired monkey and analyze its biological structure, and try to get the secret of the corpse group from it, as well as the method of eliminating the zombie virus. At least so far, they can confirm one thing: there are not many such things in Xianhe City. Only by figuring out its origin can we solve the problem from the root. On the car, Meng Xiaoyu put on a white protective suit and dissected the white-haired monkey on an operating table. Ola awaiting the results of her research. There was nothing to say that night. Xianhe City still spent the chaotic night as before. It's nothing more than a group of people killed by several major forces. It wasn't until the next day, when the belly turned pale in the east, that Meng Xiaoyu slowly took off her white gloves. There is not much space in the caravan. Everyone takes turns to rest, and the rest time for each person is less than 5 hours. Seeing that Meng Xiaoyu had completed the autopsy, they all waited for her to give a conclusion. Meng Xiaoyu looked at Captain Bian Junwu. She said, "The analysis results have come out. This is not a monkey or an ape. It is a human being. Or, it used to be human." Chapter 470. The puzzle is deeper. Meng Xiaoyu's words surprised everyone. Unexpected, but within reason. Whether it's mutated creatures, people, or corpses, it's not uncommon in today's world. Meng Xiaoyu continued, its body contains a large number of zombie viruses. This virus has obvious biological community habits. The corpse king can infect other corpses with viruses, turning them into zombies. Then, there is a certain way between the mother body and ordinary zombies. Let it command the tide of corpses. This method is very simple, and there are very few information factors that can be conveyed. Because of this, the fighting methods displayed by the corpse group at first are relatively rigid, but the corpse king itself has wisdom, and its brain remains intact. Therefore, it is not as difficult to kill as ordinary zombies, but like normal people, as long as its brain is killed, it will die. Bailey Changking sat on the seat, and couldn't help saying, "It sounds no different from humans." Qi Guangming said in a deep voice, "In this case, it means that, as long as we kill all the corpse kings in Xianhe City, we can solve the zombie crisis, right?" Meng Xiaoyu nodded approvingly. Theoretically, this is the case. Losing the corpse group led by the corpse king, no matter how large the number is, it will not be a big threat. This is a world where aliens exist. If these zombies were not directed by the corpse king, any human force could completely wipe them out, as long as they spent a certain amount of time and resources. Bian Junwu pushed his own toad mirror. After listening to Meng Xiaoyu's words, he carefully analyzed it in his mind for a long time. But there is still one problem that has not been clarified. If there is more than one corpse king in Xianhe City, where did the first corpse king come from? The corpse king is a mutation of a human or a human corpse. How did the original one get infected with the zombie virus? Everyone turned their attention to virus expert Meng Xiaoyu. Meng Xiaoyu shook his head. It's hard to find out. After all, the scale of the zombie group is too large. Coupled with the constraints of the conditions, it is extremely difficult to trace the source. It is possible that the corpse king is just a type of corpse group. Like ordinary zombies and bronze armored corpses, they were all created by the original corpse king, and its purpose of existence is only to command other corpses. Bian Junwu's face was still as cold as pig-iron. Bailey Changking smiled beside him and said, "Then we are busy. But at least we know the good news. That is, after the corpse king is eliminated, the problem of the corpse group will be solved, isn't it? It seems that this task is not as troublesome as expected. There are just too many of them." Woody clutched his forehead. "There are so many zombies. When will I have to kill them? If I can gather them together, let me be use floating cannons to kill them all." The crowd couldn't help but laugh. It's not that simple. If it was so easy, the headquarters wouldn't have to send us here. At this moment, Bian Junwu, who had been thinking about it, suddenly said, "It's indeed a good idea to gather them together and annihilate them in one fell swoop." Everyone couldn't help being stunned when they heard the words. Woody blinked and smiled happily. "Boss, you really know me. This idea is great, right?" Bailey Changking frowned slightly, but what to do? In the entire Xianhe City, corpses are dotted all over the place, everywhere. Kang Sheng said, "And really gathered them all together. That terrible number is hard to deal with." Bian Junwu folded his arms. His expression was like ice that would not melt for thousands of years. He said in a calm tone, "The actions of the corpse group are purposeful, that is, to attack the 5 major forces in Xianhe City. Although it is not clear whether they are intentional or careless, it is inevitable that the zombies will chase people's actions. Then, why don't we gather all the humans in Xianhe City together to attract all the corpses? At that time, all corpse kings can be wiped out at once. And in this way, I can also verify the conjecture in my heart. Guess." These 2 words made everyone very curious. "Boss, what do you think?" Bayan Junwoo's mouth curled into a faint smile. So far, the tide of corpses in Xianhai City has only a small-scale tendency to spread to surrounding cities. Most of the zombies are still concentrated in the Xianhai City area. This phenomenon is very unreasonable. If the body of the zombies is the virus lodged in their bodies, then according to the biological instinct, they will invade farther places. After all, the number of creatures in the local area is not enough for them to eat. So, why do they still stay in Xianhai City and keep attacking several major forces? Even Zhang Yi's shelter, which has only a few people, has been attacked by an army of zombies for a long time. A playful expression appeared on Bayan Junwoo's face. I would love to see if there is a human factor behind this. Perhaps the Corpse King was deliberately created by someone secretly. If it exists, then we must get rid of this underground force. Another night passed. The investigation team achieved a great victory outside the Yangsheng base. This is the first time that a human has killed a Corpse King, directly causing the corpses around the Yangsheng base to lose their command and become beasts that can only act according to instinct. Some zombies ran around the Yangsheng base in broad daylight. At first, this shocked everyone in the Yangsheng base who were planning to rest. But after some fighting, they were pleasantly surprised to find that the fighting power of these zombies dropped sharply. They will no longer avoid all kinds of traps and barbed wire. As long as they see humans ahead, they will rush over without thinking. Even if there were soldiers holding flamethrowers, they didn't know how to dodge, so large areas were burned to death. This made the human forces cheer. Zhu Qingting excitedly reported the news to Zhao Honglian. Zhao Honglian's tightly frowning brows also relaxed. Really? She came to the front line and saw that, although there were a lot of zombies in front of her, they were completely out of order, and she couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. Although I don't know what happened, it's good news anyway, Zhu Qingting said. Could this be related to the investigation team that came down from the Jiangnan region? Zhao Honglian thought of those members of the investigation team with formidable strength, and his expression was a little serious. It may have something to do with them. Both Zhao Honglian and Zhu Qingting's eyes were filled with unconcealable shock. Is this the strength of the Jiangnan region? A team of just 7 people actually solved a big problem in an area on the first day they came to Xianhai City. Their awe of the Jiangnan region was a little more serious. Chapter 471 Nonsense. The morning light shines on the base camp of the snow worship cult. There was another fierce battle last night, and many believers died in this battle. However, due to the large number of aliens of the snow worship cult and the accumulated experience in dealing with zombies, the number of deaths is gradually decreasing. After Zhang Yi met with Bayan Junwoo and others, they returned to the base camp and began to transfer non-combat units. The location of the transfer is nothing more than an underground parking lot, and then various methods are used to block the gate. Only the congregants with combat effectiveness are left outside, responsible for protecting everyone's safety. Before, they also tried to send the congregation to the upper floors of the building, then cut off the stairs on the lower floors. But those zombies with unlimited strength can even climb up buildings tens of meters high to prey on believers. Beizujio has suffered a lot in this regard, and now he has learned how to behave. Around St. John's Cathedral, a dilapidated scene. The light of dawn does not bring the beauty of a new day. There are broken corpses everywhere, some of people, some of zombies, and some of giant rats. The congregation had been busy all day, but at this time they had to rush to clean the battlefield. First of all, the corpse must be cleaned up and transported to the abandoned building next to the church for the bloodvines to handle. Otherwise, the people who just died in battle may also become new zombies. Others are collecting the corpses of giant rats. These are fresh flesh and blood, very rare these days. Although people don't know whether it has unknown viruses and diseases, they can be eaten, as long as they can't die temporarily. No one will think about things that are too far away. It is a day to be able to eat enough. As a priest with a certain status in the snow worship cult, Li Jian received good protection last night. But yesterday's battle was too fierce, and he was separated from his family. Now he only found his wife Zhang Jianfang, and the two were anxiously looking for their son Li Kao on the battlefield. Where did this kid, Kao, go? He's in chaos every day. Why is he disobedient? Zhang Jianfang looked anxious. There were dead people everywhere, and she was afraid that her son would also die on the battlefield. Last night, obviously they could hide. But Li Kao was worried about his little girlfriend and ran to find her regardless of Zhang Jianfang's objection. As a result, until now, they have not seen Li Kao and Zubibi. Li Jian also had serious eyes. He tried to find someone on the battlefield to ask about his son. But they haven't come to worship Snow Sect for a long time, and they don't know a few people at all. Everyone didn't care about his son's life or death. The two could only anxiously shuttle around, calling their son's name. But just when Li Jian came to the ruined corner of a building, the scene in front of him made him feel as if he was frozen in ice, from the head to the soles of the feet. Under the shadow of the ruins, Li Kao was lying on the ground covered in blood, and his lower body was drenched in dark red blood. In front of him, the leader of Snow Worship Cult, Yuan Kangai, was holding a sharp dagger in his hand, staring down at him expressionlessly. Li Jian's mind went blank. But the next moment, the instinct of fatherly love made him shout "Lel!" and rushed towards the two of them. Yuan Kangai still looked down at Li Kao, with a frantic struggle in his eyes. Without turning her head, she stretched out her left hand towards Li Jian. Boom. Li Jian felt as if he was hit by a truck, and he flew upside down 4 or 5 meters away, and then landed heavily on the ground. Zhang Jianfang rushed over at this time, saw her husband fell to the ground, and saw the scene facing her son. Her face became extremely pale. "It's so dirty." Yuan Kangai looked down at Li Kao and murmured, "You need to be purified." Everything in front of them made Li Jian and his wife extremely desperate. They didn't understand why the holy leader wanted to attack their son. However, at this moment, the figure of the high priest Zhang Yi appeared here. He caught a glimpse of the situation at the scene, frowned slightly, and walked past Li Jian and his wife to Yuan Kangai's side. He was tall and tall, a head taller than Yuan Kangai. After seeing Yuan Kangai's twisted and struggling expression, he opened his wide cloak and hugged Yuan Kangai into his arms. Yuan Kangai's body was still stiff, but the frenzy in his eyes seemed to dissipate a little. "Original sin is unforgivable. I'm helping him," she said slowly in a cool tone. I know. There's nothing wrong with you." Zhang Yixin let Yuan Kangai hold the bloody dagger, and then took her away. Li Jian and Zhang Jianfang could only watch them leave helplessly. At this time, they were extremely angry and terrified, but they didn't have time to think about it, so they hurriedly got up to check on their son's condition. When the two arrived in front of Li Kao, they found that he had passed out, his face as pale as gold paper. The lower body was bloody, but the upper body was not fatally wounded. Li Jian's face instantly became extremely ugly. He thought of the purification ceremony for entering the religion. It is said that many little boys who join Snow Worship Cult will go through that step. Before, he relied on his supernatural ability to serve the Snow Worship sect, thinking that his son could escape this disaster. But unexpectedly, this day has come. The two were deeply saddened. The only good news is that Li Kao's life was saved. After Yuan Kangai performed the operation on him, he did not forget to use his ability to stop the bleeding. It's just that, when he wakes up, how will he face the changes in his body? The couple burst into tears. Anger, helplessness, despair, pity, incomprehension. All kinds of emotions filled their hearts. They didn't understand why their son would be forced to do that kind of thing by Yuan Kangai. At this moment, Zhang Jianfang saw a trembling figure not far away. In the shadows of a corner, Li Kao's little girlfriend, Zubibi, shrank there, rolling herself into a ball with horror on her face, hugging her knees and shaking non-stop. Zhang Jianfang thought that his son came out to protect her, so he gritted his teeth and shouted at her, "Zubibi, what's going on? Why is my son treated like that by the leader? Is it because of you?" Zubibi has been crying so much. Facing Zhang Jianfang's question, she shook her head repeatedly. I didn't do anything." She lowered her head with a look of grievance and bewilderment. "After we escaped from death, he kissed me, and then the leader found out. So Zubibi felt extremely sad when she thought of the scene just now. The promised happiness will not be obtained from now on. I don't know why she looks like that. Chapter 470 To the Man, 039, S Pain. When Li Jian and Zhang Jianfang saw what happened to their son, apart from anger, there was more despair and bewilderment. This matter was done by Yuan Kangai, and now they need to rely on the protection of snow worship cult to survive. Therefore, they have no way to avenge their son, or even seek justice. But they couldn't understand why Yuan Kangai became so crazy, just because of the love between men and women between the children. In fact, after learning about the special initiation ceremony, Li Jian realized that something was wrong with Yuan Kangai. Why are underage boys castrated, but turn a blind eye to grown men? What is the reason for this? On the other side, Zheng Yixin took Yuan Kangai back to the back of the church. In her room, Yuan Kangai slowly recovered her sobriety, but for the first time, there was a trace of weakness and bewilderment on her face. She raised her head and looked at Zheng Yixin in front of her. I did nothing wrong, did I? That kind of thing is wrong in itself. I'm just helping them go the right way. Zheng Yixin nodded. She was sitting on the bed, and he was half kneeling in front of her, looking up at her. You're not wrong. It's all about that child's fault. In the last days, there is no need for love, and impure relationships between men and women should be banned. Yuan Kangai sighed. They may not understand my painstaking efforts. As she spoke, a bright smile bloomed on her face, and then she stretched out her white and tender palm to caress Zheng Yixin's side face. If only all men could be like you. Then the world will no longer be so unclean. Yuan Kangai's cold hands made Zheng Yixin's face more gentle. This world will eventually be as you wish. Yuan Kangai retracted his hand. Her face regained the calmness and majesty of the leader of the snow worship cult. That child is Li Jian's son. He won't have any emotions, will he? Zheng Yixin said. I will talk to him and let him understand your painstaking efforts. I think he will understand. Yuan Kangai nodded and said nothing more. Li Jian's ability is very useful to them, but this person poses no threat to them. People like this are their favorite. So you still have to pull it together. This time, if Yuan Kangai hadn't been stimulated by the scene of Li Kao and Zubibi, she wouldn't have done that kind of thing. And there is one thing, Zubibi lied. That was what she and Li Kao did at that time. It was not just as simple as kissing. After human beings have experienced life and death, the instinct of animals will become stronger, eager to inherit their own DNA sequences. And this pair of teenagers and girls also began to tentatively touch the forbidden fruit in the last days, when there were no taboos. Unfortunately, they met the most inappropriate person at the most inappropriate time. Li Jian and Zhang Jianfang were deeply saddened, but they also knew that it was difficult for them to seek justice in this matter. Fortunately, his son is still alive. And living in the last days, the lack of that kind of ability may not be a big impact, and it will be a matter of whether you need it in the future. As long as Li Kao is still alive, at least they still have comfort in their hearts. But adults think so, but Li Kao doesn't think so. After he woke up, he found that something was missing from his place, and he was going crazy. A teenage boy met his beloved girl again in the last days. Then you told him that you can only be sisters with that girl in the future? Li Kao yelled like crazy and even started to show signs of self-harm. What energy do I have to live? Zhang Jianfang could only cry and comfort him over and over again. The three of us are together. Work hard. Work hard. As for Zubibi, she watched Li Kao's situation secretly, weeping silently, but she no longer had the courage to approach him. It's not that she is ruthless, but that she knows that if she goes to see him now, it will only bring Li Kao more harm. This afternoon, Li Jian, who had been depressed all day, welcomed a person. High Priest Zheng Yixin. Seeing this high priest, although Li Jian felt very unhappy in his heart, he received him with all his strength. Mr. Zheng, Li Jian said. Zheng Yat-sen waved his hand. Didn't I say that when you work, you have to call your job? Li Jian quickly changed his words. Yes, Your Excellency the High Priest. Zheng Yixin said. Forget it. You have only been a teacher for a short time, and you will be slower to adapt to some titles. He walked aside and looked at Li Jian. From Li Jian's face, he saw a trace of displeasure. But one thing is good, that is, Li Jian is a man who is good at understanding people and the world. He didn't yell like a normal father, and even ran to find Yuan Kangai or Zheng Yixin desperately. But Zhang Yi also understood that he needed a reasonable explanation. If he can't give him a reasonable explanation, then Li Jian may not work so hard in the future. This is not a good thing for snow worship cult. Is your son okay? Zhang Yi asked slowly. Li Jian frowned. The physical injury is healed, but the spiritual injury may never heal for the rest of my life. A man, if he loses his manhood, he will never be able to raise his head. When Zhang Yi heard these words, the muscles on his face suddenly twitched, and his expression became a little unnatural. He said, your son has only been purified until now, which is already a great gift. But he shouldn't do that kind of thing with a woman in front of the leader. As if influenced by Li Jian's words, Zhang Yi's voice became a little slender. This made Li Jian feel a little strange. But soon Zhang Yi's voice sank again. The snow worship cult is a huge sect, with tens of thousands of followers at its peak. If it is not managed well, it is easy to cause unrest. And the relationship between men and women is more likely to be the root of cholera. Even if an adult is capable of self-control, the most fearful thing is that young and vigorous people will do things willfully. Under the last days, all the laws of order have become empty talk. If they fight and kill each other for love or get pregnant unexpectedly, don't you think it will become a huge burden for the group? He comforted in a deep voice. All of this is for the development of the sect. You are a smart person. You should understand this truth. Moreover, the incident with your son was not intended to target you. It is the same for everyone else. After Li Jian finished listening, he was silent for a long time before he nodded. That's what the high priest taught. Zhang Yi looked at Li Jian, who was listening to the instruction with his head bowed, and frowned slightly. Soon he stretched his brows and said, from today onwards, your son can receive an extra portion of nutrients. In addition to work matters, don't be affected by this matter. Li Jian nodded. I understand. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 473, The Decoy Plan. Zhang Yi comforted Li Jian and left when he saw that his mood was normal. He knew that it was impossible for Li Jian to let go of his son's affairs so quickly. However, as long as Li Jian and his family are still living in worshipping Zhao, they have to choose to let go of this matter. As the high priest, Zhang Yi was able to condescend, and it was already a great honor for Zhang Yi to come to appease their family in person. But for Li Jian, he couldn't listen to a single word of Zhang Yi's nonsense explanation. What bastard logic. People must be eunuchs for the stability of the sect, so what's the point of the sect's existence? Humans will not be able to reproduce in the future. Won't they just perish? Li Jian cursed Zhang Yi's absurdity in a low voice. But the situation is stronger than people. He still has to take care of his family of 3 and other companions brought from Yulu district. Therefore, even if he is angry in his heart, he must learn to be patient. By now, he already understood that this snow worship cult was not the utopia he imagined. As a former senior management of a listed group, his IQ is high enough. It was so high that he always felt that the snow worship cult was hiding something tricky, especially when he slowly came into contact with some core secrets of snow worship sect. This feeling became even more obvious. Li Jian's heart was very heavy. For the first time, he began to think about whether it was the right choice to take the neighbors in Yulu district to join the snow worship sect. But there is no medicine for regret in the world. If they were still staying in Yulu community, they would all become food for zombies if they were attacked by a wave of corpses. Walking to the door with heavy steps, Li Jian heard his wife's cry and Li Kao's painful cry. Li Jian's eyes became more and more sad. The inability to carry on the family line now seems to be a trivial matter. But as a father, he really couldn't bear to watch his son endure this kind of pain in the future. Thousands of words were suffocated in my heart, and I could only turn into a helpless sigh in the end. What happened to Li Jian's family was nothing more than an insignificant matter to the snow worship sect. This can be said to be a microcosm of the snow worship cult. On the seemingly harmonious surface, in fact, there has been a lot of dissatisfaction. However, because the congregation longed for shelter, even if they encountered some unbearable things, they could only choose to pretend to be ostriches and bury their heads in the sand. On the investigation team side, after they successfully killed a corpse king, they also established a battle plan. That is to attract the corpses of the entire Cheyenne city to one place, and then destroy the corpse king among them. Even if it can't be eradicated at once, it can still replicate the results of this battle, and kill a large number of that kind of intelligent white-haired monkeys. Byung Jun Woo believes that the action mode of the corpse group is similar to that of the Zerg. The corpse king has the ability to create new zombies, and its infection speed is much higher than that of ordinary zombies. And the corpse king has wisdom, and can continuously evolve through battles. It's just that as a brain, it doesn't have strong combat effectiveness. Then, the solution to the corpse tide came out. First, use a large number of people in front, to attract the main force of zombies. Then send some elites, to sneak into the ground, and decapitate the corpse king. This is Byung Jun Woo's current plan. The plan is clear, and the next step is to implement it. The first thing to do is to choose a suitable location as bait. The frontier soldier held a communicator in his hand, which marked the positions of the 5 major forces in Cheyenne City, as well as the active movement direction of the corpse group. His hand tapped on the site of Snow Worship Cult. Just make sure it's here. There are 2 reasons for establishing the battlefield as the Snow Worship Cult. First, the Snow Worship Cult has the largest number of followers, so it is the easiest to attract zombies. Second, the location of Snow Worship Sect is located in Cheyenne District, which used to be the most prosperous area in Cheyenne City. So that place has the most dead people and the largest number of zombies. This is also the place where the underground corpse tide in Cheyenne City is most likely to gather. Byung Jun Woo immediately sent someone to send a message to the 5 forces. The content of the message is very simple. Demand that they immediately relocate their non-combatants. Then, with all the fighting power, go to the Cathedral of St. John of Snow Worship to gather. After receiving the order from the investigation team, the 5 factions behaved differently. Zhao Hanglian is now the biggest beneficiary. The investigation team helped them clean up a large number of zombies around them, especially after killing the corpse king. The disordered zombies around the Yangsheng base were easily eliminated. Of course Zhao Hanglian knew that the investigation team must have done something, and most likely killed the corpse king who controlled the group of corpses. She recognized the strength of the investigation team in her heart, so she replied without hesitation, "Got it, we'll go there right away." Although they don't understand the meaning of gathering at St. John's Cathedral, they must obey each other's orders, whether it is out of trust in the strength of the investigation team, or from the background level. Qingpu Base and Zaoyu Base also responded in the same way. They housed non-combatants in underground shelters. The kind of building buried more than 100 meters underground and poured with reinforced concrete is difficult to destroy, even if it is attacked by a large number of missiles. As long as the door is not opened, those zombies and giant rats can't get in at all. Crossing Shine and Weiding He rushed to the base camp of Snow Worship Sect according to Byung Jun Woo's order with most of their combat power. However, some people are not so happy about this matter. That is the person who worships the Snow Sect. After receiving the news, Zhang Yi's expression changed again and again, which was extremely weird. He hurriedly went to Yuan Kangai to report the news. The investigation team asked everyone to gather here. It seems that we are going to fight a big battle against the corpse tide here. This is not good news for us. If this becomes the main battlefield, then the followers of the Snow Worship Cult will die. Byung Jun Woo is a person who puts the overall situation at the forefront. His eyes are only on the completion of the task, and he doesn't care about the life and death of a few people. There is nothing wrong with this kind of thinking. If the zombie problem cannot be solved, everyone in Cheyenne City will die sooner or later. Even the corpses will spread to the surrounding area, and even spread to the whole country. However, the Snow Worship Cult, who was the victim, naturally did not want to see things develop like this. After hearing this, Yuan Kangai frowned. A lot of people are going to die again, and their presence here is also a threat to us. The relationship between the 5 major forces is not harmonious. Especially the Yangsheng base and Chaoyu base, who were backstabbed by the Snow Worship Sect back then, wanted to kill all the high-level members of the Snow Worship Sect. Maybe at that time they will take action secretly and do something that is not conducive to the snow worship sect. Zhang Yi asked Yuan Khan Guy, let's move quickly. It will be terrible if they find out. Yuan Khan Guy was silent for a long while before slowly nodding his head. Just do as you say. But we don't need to worry too much. God is above, will bless the believers of snow worship sect. She clasped her hands together and prayed earnestly. It seems that there is only so much they can do now. After all, Bayan Junwu's arrangement never asks for their opinions. This order, and they can only obediently obey. Chapter 474 Assemble. On Zhang Yi's side, after receiving the news, he began to think about the profound meaning behind it. Let's gather at the snow worship cult. Why don't we choose another place, but that crappy place instead? Wait a minute, let's bring all the fighting power. Is this going to be a big battle with zombies? You really have the confidence to go to war? Did they find any important information? Zhang Yi looked at the news on his mobile phone, paced back and forth in front of the living room window, thinking about the deep meaning in it. At this time, Yang Xingxin drove the wheelchair to pass nearby. Seeing Zhang Yi with a thoughtful face, he couldn't help tilting his head and asked, brother, what are you worrying about? Zhang Yi saw that Yang Xingxin was coming, so he waved to her with a smile. You came at the right time, come here. After Yang Xingxin came over, Zhang Yi showed her the news from the investigation team. Yang Xingxin lowered her eyes, and after thinking for a moment, she laughed. Brother, this is good news. Zhang Yi said with a smile. Tell me carefully, what a good way. Yang Xingxin stared into Zhang Yi's eyes, and asked with a smile, what's wrong with snow worship? Well, they are quite poor, and they have no resources other than a large number of people. You mean, they have a large number of people? Yang Xingxin nodded. That's right, their biggest feature is that they teach a lot of people. Speaking of this, she teased, this is the only advantage they can take. Zhang Yi couldn't help but think of the fighting style of snow worship sect. Their weapons and equipment are backward, and the combat effectiveness of the congregation is not strong. Therefore, when fighting other forces, they always take the form of self-destruction to exchange lives with others. This brutal style of play also won them a living space in Xianhe City. Yang Xingxin continued, if zombies really choose people to eat, then the large number of snow worshippers will undoubtedly attract the most zombies. The investigation team asked us to gather at the snow worship cult and bring all the combat forces with us. The purpose is also obvious. They're going to have a big battle with the zombies there. The snow worshippers plus the people from various forces will undoubtedly become the most conspicuous targets in Xianhe City. Zhang Yi crossed his arms, and after hearing Yang Xingxin's analysis to this point, a bright light suddenly flashed in his mind. He looked at Yang Xingxin unexpectedly and said, if this is the case, doesn't it mean that they know how to deal with the corpses? At the beginning, their 5-member team had seen the horror of corpses. The army of zombies commanded by the wise Corpse King, coupled with the bronze-armored corpses whose combat power is comparable to that of aliens, even they are unable to deal with. Yang Xingxin tilted her head and said with a smile, since it is an investigation team sent by the Jiangnan region, its strength is naturally extraordinary. The most important thing is intelligence. Intelligence. Yang Xingxin shook her white and tender fingers and said to Zhang Yi seriously, first of all, they have more intelligence channels than us. In addition, they have gathered the information provided by our various families, so that their understanding of the corpse group is far superior to ours. So they will naturally get a solution to deal with the corpses very quickly. Zhang Yi thinks Yang Xingxin's words are very reasonable. Speaking of which, the main reason why the previous mission was unsuccessful is that we know too little about the underground. From the beginning to the end, we have never seen the Corpse King at all. We can only speculate, based on the broken information, and thus have an unknown fear of it. On the other hand, Zhang Yi had to admit that the fighting power of the 7-member team was much stronger than his team. Not to mention Bayan Junwu's combat effectiveness, his subordinates alone are at the top level in Xianhe City. It is not even weaker than the existence of the leaders of the bases. Imagine if Zhang Yi, Xiao Hanglian, and Wei Dinghe form a team of aliens. The fighting power would be equally terrifying. Zhang Yi leaned on the sofa and said lightly, in this case, let's go and have a look. Anyway, this large-scale concentration of combat power does not have much impact on us. The advantage of having a small number of people is flexibility. It is more convenient to take the initiative to attack or retreat. Coupled with the fact that there are no ordinary people holding back, Zhang Yi and the others can remain calm on any battlefield. Okay, let's go there. See what they have in mind. Zhang Yi said so. Then he informed everyone to come to the living room for a meeting. After everyone gathered, Zhang Yi told them the news he had received. Uncle Yu is very sensitive to the smell of war. He immediately said, "Is this going to war? A war between the human coalition forces and the zombie army?" Zhang Yi leaned on the sofa with a relaxed expression. Since it is a coalition force, there are many cannon fodder that can bear most of the pressure. They don't have to be too nervous. And when fighting, it is more reliable to have an elite team like a 7-man squad. He said, "Sooner or later, we must fight. If the zombie problem is not resolved, we will not be able to survive here. It's just that I didn't expect them to be so fast. They have a plan after only one day." It can only be said that a professional team is a professional team. After sighing, Zhang Yi looked at everyone with serious eyes. "But I still say that the most important thing is to protect your own safety. Life comes first, and everything else comes second. Do you understand?" Everyone nodded. They have already heard their ears grow calloused. But Zhang Yi would give careful instructions before every major action. Zhao Ke frowned worriedly and lowered her eyes slightly. "That is to say, you are all going to worship the snow cult and leave us at home, right?" Zhang Yi nodded without the slightest hesitation. "Non-combatants don't go there. If there is a fight, the number of zombies you will face is unimaginable. At that time, you will not be able to protect you at all." Thinking of the more than 1,000 million people who died in Xianhe City, Zhang Yi was still a little worried. He didn't know how many dead bodies had turned into zombies. The combination of the 5 major forces means that they have to face all the zombies in Xianhe City. He must have no worries before he can throw himself into the battle. Zhao Ke argued, "But you also need a doctor. In case of injury, I can help you treat it." Every time he fought, Zhang Yi kept her in the shelter. She understood that Zhang Yi was protecting her, but never once she was not worried for fear that something would happen to Zhang Yi. Zhang Yi raised his head and met Zhao Ke's serious eyes. She really wanted to help Zhang Yi. After all, in the extremely low temperature environment outside, if you get injured on the battlefield but don't receive timely treatment, you will easily die. Chapter 475 Zhao Ke invites a battle. Zhang Yi smiled disapprovingly. "You don't have the ability to protect yourself. Do you want me to take care of you when you are on the battlefield? Don't be stupid, girl. Field doctors are very important, but first of all they must not become a problem." Zhao Ke said, "If it was before, I know it would be inconvenient for you to take me with you. But since this is a big battle, there must be sufficient logistical support. I think not only us, but other forces of our own will also have their own logistics personnel to follow." Uncle Yu also said to Zhang Yi, "I think Ms. Zhao is right. This time, almost all the combat power of the 5 strongest forces in Xianhe City has been assembled, so this battle will definitely not end so soon. If you fight a protracted war, logistics is very important, especially medical staff." He looked at Zhang Yi with sincerity in his eyes. "Because of your caution, our team has never suffered casualties in the past, but this situation may not last forever. You should understand that it is very common for people to die on the battlefield. Doctors are also very important." Zhang Yi's heart was shaken by what the two said. Although his strength is very strong, he cannot guarantee that he will not be injured in such a large-scale melee. With the ultra-low temperature of -degrees, any injury would turn into tissue necrosis. At least it becomes disabled, and at worst it dies. Now he is stubborn, and when the time comes, he will really hurt, but there is nowhere to cry even if he cries. Moreover, even if it is for the sake of the future, the people around you must adapt to various harsh environments, even the battlefield. After thinking for a while, Zhang Yi nodded and agreed to take Zhao Ke there. "Then you can go with us this time. I will find a way to arrange you in the rear. You have to hide obediently. Once we are injured, come and treat us." Zhao Ke happily hugged Zhang Yi's neck. Her eyes sparkled with joy. I understand. I will do my duty as a doctor. Seeing that Zalketa had volunteered, Luke Karen stood up not to be outdone. She patted her lackluster chest. Brother, take me too. My marksmanship is getting better and better recently. Zhang Yi raised his head to look at the girl with short hair and said lightly, did you forget that guns have little effect on zombies? Luke Karen's face froze. Zhang Yi didn't give others a chance to speak and said bluntly, except for Kara, no one is allowed to follow. All stay in the shelter. Luke Karen sat down helplessly while Yang Xingchen looked indifferent. At this time, there is not much they can do. As for Zhao Heimei and Yang Mi, a look of relief flashed in the depths of their eyes. They didn't have the courage of Zalketa to follow Zhang Yi and the others to the battlefield. After all, they don't have much fighting ability, and they will die easily if they go there. It is of course best to be able to stay in a safe shelter. Luke Karen went to help Zhang Yi check the snowmobile to make sure that there were no potential safety hazards on the vehicle and help them fill up the gas. Zhang Yi and the others checked their weapons and equipment and planned to set off after everything was properly equipped. As for Zalketa, before setting off, Zhang Yi specially gave her a small silver pistol. Guns are basically useless against zombies, and you can't use a large caliber one. Keep this for self-defense. It's still very effective against people. The immediate crisis is the tide of corpses. But Zhang Yi did not put himself in the position of friends from other major powers. They are still potential enemies, only temporarily cooperating out of common interests. But if they don't know who will stab them in the back. Zalketa has also practiced shooting. Although her marksmanship is not very accurate, it is enough for self-protection. She took the gun and stuffed it into the interlayer of her combat uniform. The crowd drove to snowmobiles, sealed off the shelter, and set off for Snow Worship Cult's headquarters in Xianfeng district. On the side of Snow Worship Cult, knowing that the investigation team and people from other forces were coming, they hurriedly made preparations. Bian Junwu and others came here immediately. Zheng Yixin led a group of priests to greet him. It is said to be a welcome, but there is nothing special about it. Naturally, there is no time to prepare for them at a time like this. But Bian Junwu and others came as soon as they said they would, and they didn't care about the reception ceremony. It's just that after coming here, I saw bloodstains everywhere, and the stumps and broken arms have not been cleaned. In the corner, someone was even gnawing on the bloody flesh of the giant rat. All this was under the eyes of everyone, and they, who were used to seeing strong winds and waves, were not shocked at all. Zheng Yixin came to Bian Junwu and the others, nodded and said, welcome everyone to the Snow Worship Cult. I don't know what is the arrangement for the sudden request for all major forces to gather here. If we can inform in advance, we should be prepared. Wu Di sneered and hugged his shoulders. You're all like this here, so what can you do to prepare? We are here to help you in peace, so just obey our instructions obediently. Hearing Wu Di's words, the faces of the people behind Zheng Yixin showed anger. Wu Di raised his eyebrows. What's the matter? You seem very unconvinced. Do you want to come out and practice? I can let you do it together. Brother Ping Tao Han Chan couldn't bear it any longer and gritted his teeth and said, don't be too crazy. Even if the people from the Jiangnan region are strong, we are not made of mud. Han Chang, shut up. Zheng Yixin stopped him. He apologized to Wu Di. Your Excellency, don't blame me. The Snow Worship Cult has suffered heavy casualties recently, and the congregation inevitably became a little bit emotional. Wu Di wanted to say something else. Bian Junwu turned his head slightly, and he immediately closed his mouth. Bian Junwu said to Zheng Yixin, the plan will be discussed later when everyone else arrives. He was too lazy to explain to Zheng Yixin alone. Zheng Yixin smiled and said, okay, everyone, do you want to go inside and have a rest first? As he spoke, he stretched out his hand to invite the members of the investigation team to rest in the church area. Bian Junwu stepped forward. Several others followed. While walking, Bian Junwu asked, in the past few days, how many people have you worshipped the snow cult to die? Zheng Yixin pondered for a while and replied in a low voice, thousands of congregants have died in the mouths of zombies in the past few days of fighting. There are still some who are infected and have no chance to be revived. In order to prevent them from mutating, we can only deal with them in a humane way. Byung Jun Woo raised his eyebrows slightly. How many people died? He cares deeply about numbers. Only by knowing the specific death toll of the snow worship cult can he know how much the snow worship cult has been affected by the tide of corpses. Zhang Yi froze for a moment, then said hesitantly, "I'm really sorry, we haven't counted the congregation. The approximate death toll should be 3 or 4,000. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.